There we go, that's better. Howdy out there in YouTube world. Coming at you there again with another Oireachtas committee, joint committee on drug use. There we go. There we go now. We got the stretch. That should be a bit better there. Warp addict, yeah. Lower this down a bit. Sorry, I was organising some stuff there in the studio and I never put things back as they should have been, so my mic was
I'm delighted to open the 13th public meeting of the Joint Committee and our first in this module on treatment, recovery and rehabilitation. I'd like to welcome our witnesses today from the Aiséirí Treatment Centre, Ms. Sara Cassidy, Head of Clinical Services, and Ms. Mhuire Hennessy, CEO. From Mhuire, Mr. Gerry McElroy, CEO, Ms. Nicola Kelly, the Manager of the Cuan Athy. From Soilse, Mr. Noel Murphy from the Soilse Manager, the HSE Social Inclusion and Addiction Service, and Mr. Brian Kirwan, the General Manager, HSE Social Inclusion Addiction Services, and Dr. Garrett McGovern, who has worked in this field for almost 30 years, and from the Aftercare Recovery Group, Mr. Tony Keogh. You're all very welcome. So just a note on privilege before we begin. All witnesses and members are reminded of the long-standing parliamentary practice that you should not criticise or make charges against any person or entity by name or in such a way as to make him or her identifiable or otherwise engage in a speech that might be regarded as damaging to the good name of the person or the entity. Therefore, if your statements are potentially defamatory in relation to an identifiable person or entity, you will be directed to discontinue your remarks. It is imperative that you comply with any such direction. I'd also like to remind members of the constitutional requirement that in order to participate in public meetings, members must be physically present within the confines of the Leinster House complex. Members of the committee attending remotely must do so from within the precincts of Leinster House. This is due to the constitutional requirement that in order to participate in public meetings, members must be physically present within the confines of the place where Parliament is chosen to sit. In this regard, I would ask any member partaking by Microsoft Teams that prior to making their contributions to the meeting that you confirm that you are on the grounds of the Leinster House campus. Now, all opening statements have been circulated to members and will be published on the Oireachtas website after the session. As agreed, each opening statement will be limited to 5 minutes to allow plenty of time for questions and answers. I'm conscious of the wide range of issues to be discussed today. If necessary, further or more detailed information can be sent to the Clerk of the Committee for circulation to the members. I'd also like to mention that members will be in and out of the committee because we will have requirements to be in the chambers and elsewhere, so please don't read any more into that. So, thankfully, we're now opening our engagement on youth harm and reduction, prevention and diversion. And I would like to invite Ms. Cassidy to... No, sorry. Sorry, no, we have the wrong heading. That's okay. Yes, no problem. We read her initially anyway. So I'd like to invite Ms. Cassidy to deliver your opening statement on behalf of the Aiséirí, please.
Thank you, Chair, committee members and esteemed guests. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Sara Cassidy. I'm Head of Clinical Services in Aiséirí and I'm joined by Mhuire Hennessy, CEO of Aiséirí. Aiséirí was established in 1983 and has grown into a national leading provider of addiction treatment in Ireland. Aiséirí provides a unique continuum of care and recovery from residential detoxification, residential addiction treatment, residential secondary addiction treatment, sober living and recovery support to our progression programme which provides education and career development. We also run Ashland, the only residential addiction treatment service in the state for young people aged 15 to 21. Over the past 4 decades, Aiséirí has continuously developed to meet the complex and changing needs of individuals and their families affected by addiction. We are a national service located in 4 counties across the southeast. Our collective goal here today is treatment, recovery and rehabilitation. It is important to stress that a residential treatment programme is the first pillar of support for an addict, but recovery support and ongoing rehabilitation are the other 2. Individual transformation comes from the services that continue to support and enable ongoing recovery and healing. Aiséirí is steadfast in its vision. We believe in the priceless potential of people and that recovery from addiction is possible for everyone. Aiséirí is part of Addiction Treatment Centres of Ireland and National Voluntary Drug and Alcohol Services, and we continue to advocate for people requiring addiction treatment services. The ongoing challenge of addiction, mainly with young people in Ireland, addiction, substance misuse is undoubtedly a pervasive problem in Irish society, and the age of people requiring treatment has dropped dramatically in recent years, as reflected in Citizen Assembly's findings. Early intervention in addiction treatment is crucial. Aiséirí Ashland provides treatment for young people who are the most vulnerable and often marginalised in society. This is truly a preventative and life-changing service, unique in the state and focused on managing the complexity of this group's needs, from neurodiversity, mental health, trauma, intergenerational family addiction, educational deficits, housing and deprivation. Our admission data currently shows that 40% of our adolescent clients have ADHD and other forms of neurodiversity, which adds to the responsibility, challenges of care and cost that face Aiséirí Ashland now and into the future. The major challenges: Aiséirí Ashland has capacity, but is underutilised by the state despite a massive and growing national addiction problem. The HSE National Funder holds the purse strings, but is also in control of referral pathways. The current HSE drug strategy of trying to meet the needs of young people in the community is valid, but it should also at local, regional and national level consistently enable referral to residential care when required. Referral should not be postcode lottery. Similarly, in the judicial system, the Youth Diversion Programme has stopped the referral pathway into early treatment for young people as they no longer have a probation officer. These changes in referral pathways have reduced access for young people requiring residential treatment. In 2020, we had 177 referrals, and in 2025, 140 young people were referred to the services. The recovery and rehabilitation, the most vulnerable people who have the most complex needs require long-term recovery and rehabilitation. Aiséirí Keogh has over 20 years of developing the secondary treatment services in Waterford, offered to both male and female clients. This work provides 6 months additional residential therapeutic work, followed by 3 months sober housing and engagement in the progression programme. The programme focuses on the following 4 principles: health, overcoming or managing one's diseases, as well as living in a physically and emotionally healthy way; home, a stable or safe place to live that supports recovery; purpose, meaningful daily activities such as a job, school, volunteerism, family caretaking or creative endeavours; and the importance of independence, income and resources to participate in society. And then community, relationships and social networks that provide support, friendship, love and hope. The ongoing progression programme is key to successful rehabilitation in addiction. Post-admission rehab care that brings vulnerable persons back to beneficial life in the community needs to be supported, standardised, scaled and funded consistently by the state. Our progression model shows 87% success rate and can be the template nationally. It needs to be supported by the state as it provides healthcare, housing, education and jobs in a safe and supportive environment within the community. So it's very much a win-win-win. The challenges: there is no sustainable state funding for this service, despite its efficacy and alignment with the national strategy focusing on recovery and rehabilitation. No recognition of the service as being the most effective way to prevent recidivism and to reduce the further costs to the state. Our programme is consistent with the Sláinte Care mission of integrating person-centred care in the community, and with the mission of the 2010 National Drugs Rehabilitation Framework document. Is also consistent with the Department of Health's Reducing Harm, Supporting Recovery document 2017-2025. Our programme joins up the dots of care in addiction, providing comprehensive integrated care from recognition through rehab and into full recovery in the community. In conclusion, Chair, members, I would like to leave you with a few key messages. Firstly, we are all agreed there is a national problem with substance misuse, and Aiséirí has solutions. We are innovative and manage a range of addiction services focused on the needs of individuals and their families. Secondly, we are serious about helping young people, families and communities. Early intervention is the most important factor in successful treatment. Changes in referral structures have blocked access for young people to our Ashland service. We ask for support in prioritising referrals for vulnerable young people and facilitate them in accessing help that they require. Finally, treatment funding is a core pillar of the process and relatively well funded and understood. However, the model for continuing recovery post-treatment and engaging in rehabilitation through progression in education and career development lacks appropriate funding structures. Recidivism and failure happen when people leave treatment and return to their previous lives unsupported. Appropriate funding for secondary services must be front and centre. Our collective goal as a society must be the support of the individual and prevention of return to active addiction. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms Cassidy. I'd now like to invite Mr McElroy to deliver your opening statement on behalf of Mhuire.
Mhuire, I would like to thank everybody here and welcome this opportunity to address the Joint Committee on Drug Use. Inspired by her belief in the value of every human being, Sister Consilia Fitzgerald founded Mhuire in 1966 in order to set up a centre home primarily for those who are marginalised as a result of their addiction. Over the past 60 years, Mhuire has evolved and has now grown into the largest voluntary provider of residential addiction treatment and rehabilitation services in Ireland. Its doors are open to anyone seeking freedom from addiction, a challenge that touches lives across all backgrounds. All are welcome irrespective of faith, ethnic background or financial circumstances. In the Republic of Ireland, we have 4 treatment centres with 92 detox beds and 352 treatment beds. Our treatment centres are located in Kildare, Limerick, Cork and Galway. Post-treatment, we also provide 102 supported housing beds in our 7 transition houses in Dublin, Limerick, Cork, Galway and Monaghan for homeless persons in early recovery. As part of our commitment to provide the best quality of care, all of our centres have CHKS accreditation and ISO certification. In our treatment centres, we provide a 12-week abstinence-based residential programme, including detox for alcohol and gambling, and a 20-week abstinence-based residential programme for drugs. Through a holistic model of care, Mhuire supports individuals in addressing the psychological, emotional and social dimensions of addiction. Our approach is rooted in the therapeutic community model, and our treatment programmes are delivered by a multidisciplinary team qualified and experienced in addiction treatment, providing detox, group therapy, individual counselling, family therapy, relapse prevention and aftercare. An individual care plan specific to the person's needs is in place for each participant. We have over 200 staff working directly within our treatment programmes, consisting of nurses, counsellors, group facilitators and a cohort of volunteers complementing the service. We also maintain strong links with other professional supports outside of Mhuire, such as GPs, housing key workers, probation officers and others.
In 2024, we had a total of 1,923 admissions for our residential programme. Of those admitted, 63% stated that alcohol was their primary addiction, 26% stated that drugs was their primary addiction, and the remaining 11% stated that gambling was their primary addiction. However, it is important to point out that 53% of those who had alcohol as their primary addiction and 40% of those whose primary addiction was gambling have also admitted to taking drugs. Currently, we have a large percentage of polysubstance users in our treatment programmes. Like all other organisations, Mhuire does have its challenges. Despite our best efforts to minimise waiting lists, the demand for our service continues to increase, and with that, the waiting times are growing ever longer. Another major challenge for us in Mhuire is the gap between mental health services and addiction services. A high percentage of people presenting to our service also have additional mental health diagnosis. We urgently need supports from mental health services whereby an integrated treatment approach could be put in place for an individual with dual diagnosis in order to provide the best possible outcome. Due to the current housing crisis, we are finding it extremely difficult in supporting our residents to find accommodation. Many risk homelessness after completion of their programme due to the lack of availability of social housing and rental accommodation. This results in treatment beds as well as step-down or transition places being blocked for lengthy periods of time as we continue in our attempts to help people to find suitable accommodation. There is no benefit to be gained for any individual going through a residential treatment programme only to find themselves in temporary accommodation or on the streets where they are surrounded again by substance misuse. Our resources, particularly our financial resources, are limited, and this results in a great challenge for us when responding to the ever-increasing demand for our services. As a voluntary organisation with charitable status, we rely entirely on fundraising events, donation and also funding from state agencies. Despite the difficulties we are encountering, Mhuire remains deeply committed to facilitate our service users as they seek to rebuild their lives, and we continue to strive to provide the highest standards of excellence for those to whom we provide care and support. We hope that our engagement with the Joint Committee on Drug Use today will support and enhance the wider discussion around the emerging needs and development of services for those seeking treatment and for drug addiction. Thank you.
Gerry and Nicola, thank you very much. I'd now like to invite Mr. Murphy to deliver your opening statement on behalf of Soilse. You're very welcome.
To say thank you for the opportunity to speak here today to the Chair and to everybody else here, and I'm accompanied by my General Manager, Brian Keogh. So a lot of what I'm saying is going to overlap, but just listening to this, so there's a lot of very similar stuff going on. So Soilse is the HSE's recovery-orientated addiction and rehabilitation programme, and we're based in Dublin's North Inner City. We've been in continuous operation since 1992, founded by a man called Gerry McElroy, and we work with individuals who experience complex and entrenched substance use issues, many of whom face multiple layers of social and health disadvantage. So our work is grounded in collaboration. We partner closely with statutory, voluntary and community organisations, including the CDTB, which supports us in our educational and vocational programmes, many of which are QQI accredited. We also work alongside the Recovery Academy of Ireland, the North Inner City Drug and Alcohol Task Force, and a range of other peer-led recovery fellowships. And we have excellent support from our IHA management team, and this has allowed us to move from a primarily opiate-based treatment model to a treatment and rehab approach that can meet the needs of our new service users who are presenting with unique problems associated with the new emerging drug trends. And we'll speak a bit about that later on. So for this, we are aiming to develop treatment strategies to support people affected by behavioural addictions like gambling and gaming, and possibly sex addiction as well. And the Soilse team need to be innovative and progressive in our continuum of care process to ensure optimal success. So who are the people that we support? So we prioritise women and people living in the North Inner City, and individuals are already engaged in our HSE continuum of care, which is one of the first organisations to set that up in Dublin. So the first point of contact, each participant undergoes a comprehensive needs-based assessment. So that originally came from the Cork Kerry assessment. It's called a CAT. So that's now being used by a load of different agencies to stop people being re-traumatised. So we use the one assessment tool so we can then share it. So that's the reason we brought that in. So this allows us to identify recovery capital. Recovery capital is a concept that came from a man called William Mhuire and Best, another guy called Best. So we work on that an awful lot now in terms of how we identify with people what skill set you bring in and what work they need done on the bench to be able to go on and do well in life. So the programme delivery that we have, so Soilse operates, it's a structured full-time programme Monday to Friday. So it's about 9:30 to about 4:30. And then we also have an evening aftercare, but the participants engage in therapeutic group work, addiction education, one-to-one counselling, health and wellbeing modules, creative therapies, parental classes for parents, and physical activity, and that's to look at the hidden harm from drug addiction. So we try and teach parents on the course what effect their addiction has on themselves, but also on their children, so we can try and sort of counterbalance that when they leave, you know. So it's a holistic model that reflects the complexity of the lives of those we support. So referrals to us emanate mainly from past participants, so people who've gone through the programme, they end up in recovery, they move on into fellowships, and then people who come into fellowships looking for support. A lot of it is word of mouth, and it's the good reputation that we have. So also concerned family members, other drug projects, self-referrals, probation, addiction case managers, and self-help fellowships like NA, CA and NA and AA, sorry. So approximately between 120 and 150 participants successfully complete the different Soilse programmes every year. So that would be generally between 120 and 150. So our multi-D team, it's a HSE team, and it contains staff from a number of different disciplines, and they're all a very experienced team we have, and they all embrace a recovery-orientated system of care and a non-judgmental approach. And the team includes addiction education officers, specialist addiction counsellors, social care workers, counsellors. We have a consultant psychiatrist also that comes in every Thursday. What the previous speaker was talking about with dual diagnosis. It can be a really big problem if you don't have a psychiatrist sorted to address that side of it, you know. So it was a really important addition to the team we got last year. So we also have aftercare facilitators. We have an admin team, and we also, which is a strong thing that we believe in, is trained peer support workers. So people who've been in addiction, now they're in the recovery, and now they come back as workers. And they sort of, that creates recovery champions then. So due to the high demand, Soilse operates multiple programs on a continual basis, including 4 full-time drug and alcohol-free rehabilitation groups, 2 pre-entry programs to stabilise individuals before they move into full-time. We have a full-time detox prep program as well, so that's for people to get them off methadone and other prescribed meds. And we have 3 aftercare groups that run in the evenings, so they're packed as well, they're full to the brim. And then what we're starting now in February is a ChemSec support group. And what we noticed with that was that we were getting people from the LGBT community in, and we were losing through relapse. And we found that we didn't really understand what was going on. So there's a lot of sort of stuff that's going on in that community that we're not aware of. So we've got 2 psychotherapists in who are both from the LGBT community, and they'll be running the group every Friday evening. So we've identified a clear and growing need for targeted support for members of the LGBT plus community involved in chemsex and related substance use. So this cohort often experience severe mental health and physical health consequences and high relapse rates and limited access to appropriate services. So this issue remains largely hidden and under-researched. So we're going to commence a 24-week pilot programme in February 26 and facilitate by a qualified psychotherapist or members of the LGBT community. This is a critical step in addressing this gap in national service provision.
Noel, I'm going to stop you there if that's okay, because I don't want to be accused of favouritism because you're in my constituency, but I promise I will subtly give you favouritism over the course of the next couple of hours. We'll come back, I promise.
Thank you.
Dr. McGovern.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Oireachtas, colleagues, members of the public. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak today. We're here to talk about drugs, but more importantly, we're here to talk about people. People with families, with histories and with futures. People whose lives too often are shaped not by their potential, but by stigma, punishment and missed opportunities for care. This broadly reflects how the Citizens' Assembly on Drug Use approached the issue, calling for a comprehensive, health-led response and a move away from criminalisation. I've been working in the field since 1998, almost 30 years ago. Over that time, I've seen Ireland's drug landscape change repeatedly. When I started, the system was largely built in response to a heroin crisis. Today, we are dealing with something very different: widespread polydrug use. The drugs most commonly associated with harm and with treatment demand include cocaine, opioids, cannabis, and benzodiazepines. Not to mention alcohol, alongside emerging harms linked to substances such as ketamine and nitrous oxide, and many more that are often used together in an array of combinations. Along the way, we've seen other significant trends: the so-called head shop substances in the late 2000s, shifts in benzodiazepine use, and more recently, overdose clusters related to highly potent synthetic opioids such as nitazines detected in the heroin supply and appearing in increasingly unpredictable ways across the drug market. The point is simple: drug use evolves quickly. Treatment services and systems have not. We are now operating with structures and pathways that were designed for a very different drug market. In many parts of Ireland, there are limited or inconsistent treatment options for people experiencing problems related to polydrug use, including cocaine, benzodiazepines and other substances. Due to this patchwork quilt of service provision and clinical expertise, access to care still depends too heavily on where you live rather than what you need. This is not because clinicians or services do not care. It's because the system itself is outdated, fragmented and overly rigid. Too often people are offered whatever happens to be available or nothing at all, rather than a range of evidence-informed options that reflect the realities of contemporary drug use. A health-led approach with a basic recognition problematic drug use is a health issue. It's not a moral failing. People do not recover because they are punished. They recover when they are supported, treated with dignity and offered timely, appropriate care. That care must combine the right clinical responses with the right psychosocial supports and be delivered within existing services if there is a clear leadership, investment and consistency across the state and state-funded providers. This is not about reinventing everything, it's about modernising what we already have and ensuring it actually meets current need. Recovery does not look the same for everyone, it's not linear. It does not always involve abstinence and does not happen to a timetable. Progress for people can include reduced use, improved health, safer use, stability and reconnection with family, work or community. All of these are legitimate and meaningful outcomes. Relapse should not be treated as failure. It should be met with care, not condemnation. The framing of the last strategy got this right, reducing harm, supporting recovery. Words matter. The balance matters. We also need to acknowledge the harms caused by criminalisation itself. A drug conviction, possession conviction can limit access to employment, education, housing and travel long after drug use is stopped. This is not public safety, it's a long-term social harm. The recent nicotine-related overdose clusters are a stark reminder of what happens when drug markets change faster than systems can respond. Risk escalates quickly when services are slow to adapt. We have done well so far, but there are still developments that could make us safer still, including wider, properly resourced drug checking services, and making naloxone easier to access, ensuring no cost barriers and fewer practical restrictions on supply. What is required now is progressive leadership that ensures people across Ireland have consistent access to a range of treatment and support options regardless of geography, leadership that backs evidence over ideology and care over control. This approach is not radical, it's evidence-based. Jurisdictions that have invested in health-led responses have seen fewer drug-related deaths, better engagement with services and improved public health outcomes. Ireland has made progress, but implementation has been uneven and intent too often outpaced delivery. If we are serious about reducing harm, supporting recovery and saving lives, then we must modernise our response to reflect today's drug use, not yesterday's. Compassion is not weakness, care is not complacency, and a health-led drug policy is not just an option, it is our responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McGovern. Mr. Keogh, you're up now from the Aftercare Recovery Group. You're very welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Tony Keogh, and I'm the Project Manager and a founding member of Aiséirí Aftercare Recovery Group. On behalf of the Aiséirí, the past and present participants, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity here that we're given today. Who we are. Aiséirí is a drug-free day programme established in 1999 to meet the needs of people upon completion of their residential treatment programmes to address and process the issues identified in their primary care, such as trauma, or oftentimes, issues that weren't addressed in their primary care for many reasons. The recovery process from addiction is a difficult and often complex one with a high risk of relapse at this early and vulnerable stage of returning into the community, and therefore a comprehensive programme is often needed to address the causes and conditions that led to addiction in the first place. What is aftercare? Conventionally, aftercare is perceived as a weekly support group provided by our treatment centre upon completion of the treatment process. We support and encourage this to all our participants to follow through with the commitment to completion. But we believe that a paradigm shift is needed in how we view aftercare, and as a result, we've developed a comprehensive programme to address the needs of those people presenting for support post-treatment. What we do. Aiséirí provide a structured day programme from Monday to Friday with evening and weekend support. We have a small, dedicated, skilled, qualified and experienced team to address the complex issues that often emerge when a person comes back from the abyss of addiction. And I know the committee has heard very much so valuable contributions from individuals and service providers in relation to the difficulties such as trauma, grief, abuse, loss in many forms before, during and after addiction. However, with the right mental, emotional, physical and spiritual nurturing, support structures and experience, these can be overcome. The nature of addiction and recovery is complex and there is no one-size-fits-all. There is no quick fix. Our programme is designed in a way that we mould the programme around the individual rather than moulding the individual into a programme. A complex programme like recovery from addiction requires a comprehensive response and needs time and attention to treat the underlying causes of addiction. And it's a process, not an event. Conclusions. Aiséirí and such programmes are doing their very best with the limited resources we have. We're an integral and essential part of the continuum of care that our people have to use and have used to get to this point in their recovery journey. Aftercare is not just an afterthought, and it shouldn't be treated as such. This is where the theory meets practice, where the research and the studies that have been undertaken to inform us of the best practice are applied. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's where the practical application of the information is put into place. Where all the interventions from the various services throughout the continuum of care come together in one place to give the person the best possible springboard into the rest of their lives, including future employment, training or education. Aftercare is the belt and braces that protect the investment our people and the services have made, often taking years or decades to get to this stage throughout the whole continuum of care to secure their future and the future recovery, and to break the cycle of addiction from previous generations and the generations to come. Hopes and recommendations. On behalf of the ACRG, past and present participants, we respectfully request the Committee on Drug Use to represent and advocate for aftercare to be backed and fully resourced on the continuum of care for a health-led approach. We believe that ACRG and programmes like it are best placed in the community to meet those needs. There is no graduation. The work continues. Thank you for your service, and thanks for the time for taking to hear their submission.
Tony, thanks so much for your contribution. Okay, members, over to yourselves. You have 7 minutes for questions and answers. And Deputy Chair, like you are first in the row that was circulated before the meeting.
Chair, and I just want to thank and pay tribute to all our witnesses here today and all the work that you do. And I must say, I think in terms of the outcomes from this committee, you know, there's days I wonder how much the recommendations from this committee will be finally taken up by government. But I think in terms of the ability of this committee to hold a mirror up through the accounts of all your various organisations and show what incredible work has been done across the country, but also how inconsistent it is developed as well, I think is something really stark, but I think really important lessons in terms of how other areas can adopt some of the brilliant work that has been done. I think the other thing, just to reflect as well, obviously, you know, from Mhuire's perspective, you talked about housing being a critical issue today, and I know as well in terms of the lack of integration with mental health services and disability services, and so much more work is needed to be done on that. But I just want to, I suppose, put my first question to Aiséirí, just in terms of, you know, I suppose to think that you're the only residential facility in the country for 15 to 21-year-olds is incredible. But the issue with regards to the referral pathway, you might just talk in a little bit more detail about that. I know you reflected on the lack of probation officers. It's an issue that we see that there's been little or no increase hardly in probation officers across the country over the last number of years, but you might just talk about the blockages that are there, and in particular the drop in numbers that you've seen between 2020 and 2025.
No, absolutely. What we found is that with initiatives, government initiatives, a number of years ago, there was that big shift to move care, certainly for young people, into the community, and increased community services have meant that young people can access certain levels of care within the community, which is a wonderful thing. The difficulty being is that the substance misuse problem is increasing, and there's always a cohort of young people that are going to need our level of care, Tier 4 level of care, residential treatment. They're not being referred through the HSE. It's held by the South East as a gatekeeper, if you like, but it's a national service. The difficulty being is that people aren't aware. So if you asked a parent who's under pressure with a child who is struggling, they have absolutely no idea where to go. And it might be suggested to go to drugs.ie or something like that, but the actual pathway to get help, residential care, isn't obvious. And that's throughout the country, and we're battling that all the time, trying to explain how to get a child as far as Tier 4. It's a major block.
So there's an information gap there, but is there other blockages then, particularly you mentioned about the youth diversion programme?
Yeah, 100%. See, the youth diversion programme means that there's no access for those young people, no pathway for them to get to addiction treatment with us by not having a probation officer. And by going to youth diversion, they no longer have a probation officer, whereas originally they would have. So we've had to work a lot with Oberstown directly and inform and educate them that this is an option for these young people if it's necessary. But again, they have to go back through a probation officer.
So do you need to be with the probation officer to be able to access your service?
That's the referral pathway that the judicial system has in place, which is an issue.
For yourselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a block.
Okay. But you
for
want
the young
that
people.
broadened?
Yeah.
Okay.
And with the HSE funding itself, this is the conundrum. Ashland Aiséirí has funding and it has capacity. So it begs the question why the children aren't managing to get to us.
When did those changes come in with regards to the probation officer and the youth diversion?
That's in
program?
place approximately 3 years now, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a big issue.
Okay.
Because we all know the problem is out there, and we're there and ready to help, and they're not coming.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I just want to put the question now to Soilse, and thanks so much to Noel and to Brian, and obviously Brian, I know you, and Noel, thank you so much for all the work you do in the inner city, just particularly because I suppose the project is targeted at women and it's a full-time programme. I'm just interested to know about the completion rates, and particularly because it is a full-time programme, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, is it 9 to 5? You said that, you know, in terms of how well does that work for women? And obviously it does work, but, you know, is there a demand there to do part-time? What are the childcare issues? Because again, trying to get women into the system is, because of the caring responsibilities, is a challenge.
Yeah, so it's, every group is 12 and it's usually about 4 women and 8 men. And that's why we would prioritise women for them reasons that you gave there. So we would work with, say, women would probably have to leave early sometimes, or we might get them support in a creche if the child is at a particular age. They have a lot more of a difficult struggle than men have, particularly with all the other stuff that goes with that as well, you know, and depending on if the partner's in addiction, the lack of support. So that's why we prioritise them. So we make sure that they get the first on the list, and that we give them extra support when they're in there. And we link them in with other support services, HSC or voluntary services as well. So there is a big push for us to get women through, and that's been like that since I've been there, and I'm there over 25 years. So it's always been the way, you know. And we've got really good success with them as well, you know. So.
Okay,
I think one of the other pieces, just in relation to female participation, is that we have an evening service as well that's up on Manor Street, that's Sonia and the First Steps group that they're looking for, to accommodate people that can't do a day service. So they attend there and over in the centre in Manor Street. So I think every case is dealt with individually, but the focus for us is in relation, because we know that it's a struggle for women to get into the treatment services, and there's a lot more men, as Noel said, in services. So the specific focus is on females for us with Soilse.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Chair, just in the last few seconds, there's a question I just want to put to Tony, and you might have a chance to answer it, but I'm sure it'll be taken up. Just in terms of the aftercare piece, obviously, which is at the heart of your project, and thank you for all the work that you do in the inner city. And I know Soilse obviously, you know, talked about the aftercare piece as well. Obviously, there's competing views about what recovery is. Is it a lifelong thing, or is it, you know, that point? So in your own view, your own perspective, the aftercare need, like, is in the duration, particularly if it is to be more funded in a more structured fashion into the future, how do you envisage that like, is in the period of time, and what would that greater structure look like?
Well, I think that we have a day programme that's established for people to come, and they may come for 6 to possibly even 18 months. It's a day, so it's a comprehensive mental, emotional, physical, spiritual nature of the human. So we have a small team, but they're highly skilled, qualified, trained and experienced as psychotherapist, counsellor, clinical supervisor. Because when they've identified the issues in the short-term residential treatment programme, often for only 4 weeks. So when you come out of the abyss of addiction, you might know which end is up. And we know that recovery and addiction are linear processes. So the support that's needed for the person to kind of untangle the things that he may well have identified in treatment, but often very often haven't identified because they didn't surface or because of the fear of identifying them.
Sure.
And then that type of trauma needs to be neutralised, and it takes some time before reintegration can take place, you know.
Okay, okay, great,
Tony.
thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Deputy Sherlock. Deputy Burke, you're up next.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for the work that you are doing. I know it's a very challenging area, and you know, as was pointed out by a number of speakers, it is changing on a constant basis. Something that was effective 2 or 3 years ago, you know, have to approach it in a different way, and I very much understand the challenges that you face. I just want to focus slightly on, I know a lot of the presentations here are about care for people who have problems, but can I just touch on something that I came across during the Young Scientists exhibition, where I had a student who did a survey of young people and their attitude towards drugs. She was a student from Mhuire in Cork. And one of the things that came across from that survey was the lack of knowledge that students had about the negative impact of taking drugs. And I'm just wondering, have we actually done any research as regards, say, secondary school students now, you know, their whole approach to this area, because they initially started off as an experiment and then they get very easily dragged into where it's a constant need to access drugs. And number one, have we done research on this area? Number two, once you do that research then about setting out a clear programme, we're very much focused on the health service delivering kind of education in this area, but should we not always also be focusing on both our second level and our third level colleges about education in this whole area?
Please go for Sara.
Thanks, Minister Burke. Currently, we're doing a collaboration with Planet Youth has done a certain level of research throughout the country in every county with young people aged 15 to 16. And so there's very good research come out of that in collaboration with Iceland. And in Clonmel, we're doing a pilot piece with all of the schools and the principals. So we're at the point we've met with all the principals, etc. But out of that research from Planet Youth was showing that level of unawareness around young people and the harms and how serious these substances are. And like the doctor referred to there a moment ago, it's changing so quickly that even the young people aren't aware of, for example, like ketamine and the massive damage that ketamine can do to a young person. Alcohol as well, obviously, and then this nitrous oxide. So that collaboration that we're currently doing is rolling out in all the secondary schools, and we've involved the primary schools as well. So that's rolling out this year to enhance their already education pieces that they have in place, but it's very limited what's already in place within the schools. So this is a push that we're doing with Planet Youth and the Regional Drug Task Force and the...
But you think that we should be doing more on this whole area, because there is that whole lack of knowledge. And then the other issue is in relation to parents, for instance. One of the interesting projects I saw advertised recently was by Cork City Partnership, where they're doing a 9-week programme for parents in dealing with adolescents. And I think it's a really, really good programme what they're doing. And I'm just wondering, do we need to do a lot more of that to help not only the students, but also the parents in coping with it?
Oh no, I believe absolutely. Certainly with the parents as well. There's a huge divide between understanding the harms and what's happening in the community, and with social media and what these children are exposed to now is completely different to what their parents would have grown up with. So there needs to be a big push in this area for sure.
I'm just wondering, from Mhuire's point of view, I mean, obviously when Mhuire was set up, it was very much focused in relation to people with alcohol addiction. Now the focus is on a number of different areas, but just how that has evolved, and how do you see, you know, that changing, taking into account the access to the availability of drugs? Do you think that there are now major challenges?
To Mhuire, we've had to evolve massively over the last maybe 5 years, because the change is happening so fast, like you say, and we've totally broadened our criteria in order for people to access treatment, you know, because of the ever-evolving, like Aiséirí have spoken about there. Parents are at an absolute loss as to what has happened to their son or their daughter. And we're continuously doing outreach programs into schools and into GAA clubs. But most of that will be done locally from whatever centre. You know, be it Limerick, they will go out locally to the people around Limerick and the organisations. If it's in Kildare, we will cover Leinster and the schools. But it's only done on request from the schools. We're not really going out to the schools, if that makes sense. They're looking for us to go out to them, and we will respond and go out. Yeah. We will talk to parents or we will talk to students.
But just, you mentioned there about GA clubs, but isn't it a case, and I know it is certainly a case from, say, the juvenile court, that a lot of the kids that appear before the juvenile court are people who are not involved in any organisation, youth club, GA club, rugby club, soccer club.
Yeah.
You know, isn't there a need then to use the schools a lot more as regards getting a message across, both in relation to, we seem to have got the message across, for instance, in relation to smoking, and it seems to have worked. It was a major campaign, but are we doing enough in this whole area as regards education, and should there be a lot more put into the educational system on this?
I don't believe we are doing enough. I believe there can be a lot more done. Absolutely, I can't disagree with you there. Yeah.
And say the use of, you know, you mentioned the use of sports organisations. Do you think sports organisations could be given support to help as well in that?
I do, yeah. I suppose my experience about going out to sports clubs are very often maybe chairmen of the GA clubs or the rugby clubs or whatever it is will request that we go and talk to their people about drugs or alcohol, and the people that they're looking to turn up at these nights and these events don't turn up.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No, just in regards to the Planet Youth research that was conducted, they actually found that there was a massive problem for young people that were actually engaged in clubs as well. So, you know, the problem is far-reaching. You know, it's not just for those that aren't engaged in anything, which is unfortunate, but it implies obviously we need to reach out to these organisations as well in a big way. So I would agree. More work needs to be done.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Deputy. The next person on our list is Senator Fitzpatrick.
And thank you all for being here and for the incredible work that you've been doing for decades. You know, really, you said it, Doctor, it's humans, it's human lives, and it's human lives being destroyed, and you're saving lives. So thank you for all of that work, and thank you to all of the people that work with you and the volunteers, and it's really, really important. I completely identify with the statement that, you know, every human life is precious and every human life deserves dignity and respect and to be supported, and none of us are born perfect, so we all need help in different ways at different times in our lives, and you are that help for so many people, so thank you sincerely for that. I want to talk about it in a broader sense, but the Aiséirí and the Ashland, it's really triggered me, the referral process, particularly for the young people. And I just want to be sure that I'm understanding this, because I understand it's a national service with 4 centres, all located in the southeast, funded by the HSE and with sufficient capacity to accept more clients. So how do referrals take place? Because is it just, am I to understand that young people can only be referred if they have a probation officer?
No, so in Ashland, our young people would come through the HSE for funding, the probation services for funding, or private insurance or self-pay. So a GP could refer an individual to us, and in regards to funding, then if the family had insurance, that was fine. For those that need to go through HSE funding, for many of us it would be too much of a cost, they have to go to their substance misuse team in their area. And then there's a process for that young person to go through in order to be referred to us. So we could encourage a family, go to your substance misuse team in your area and go through the process. Whilst in that substance misuse team, the young person and that family may never get to us because that team have not referred to Ashland, even though that's what the family may have been requesting. The other big difficulty we have...
Sorry, can I just interrupt you for a moment? Why wouldn't they refer?
They may feel in that team that they can work with the individual in the community, and because there was a push strategically to do that, the teams are pushing to do that and remaining in the community. Oftentimes then the age range for the people that we have in our adult centres, then I'm with Aiséirí 20 years, and nowadays you're looking from age 20 to 30 in our adult services, which implies that these young people then are just reaching us kind of in their early 20s as opposed to getting to us at an earlier stage. If they've survived, there are many that are dying out there, and it's not necessarily recognised.
For the lucky ones that do get referred and do get accepted,
yes,
the young people, that is, how long are they with you?
They're with us residentially in Ashland from 6 to 9 weeks. We do residential detox, so depending on their requirement for detox, it'll change the length of stay, but generally 7 to 9 weeks.
And then they're discharged back to their family?
So there's a 2-year recovery support piece.
Aftercare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the point I was making in my second part of my speech is in regards to the secondary part. I mean, it's an absolute crime to pull somebody into us residentially and then send them home if home is not a safe place to go or the community is not a safe place to go. So our secondary treatment centres in Waterford, there's that possibility of having a full year of recovery under your belt through going through that process, and that has been the most beneficial really for what we've seen for those that are chronically addicted. There's no secondary treatment currently for under 18s, so there's no secondary treatment house, so it's 18-year-olds up, and that's a gap, and we're very much in Aiséirí wishing to close that gap in the short term. So yes, for those that can't go to secondary treatment, they would return to their home area, and that's when we'll collaborate with community services. But again, it's postcode dependent. It is completely postcode dependent. If the person is coming from Dublin, there are some really good day services like we've spoken about that can really help with the young people. We have fantastic services in Dublin. But if the person is coming from other parts of the country, they're really limited, really limited. We have very good services in Cork and Dublin and somewhat in Limerick, and anywhere else the young person is in trouble.
And surely the HSE would, in those areas where they don't have good day services, by good I mean properly resourced or adequately resourced day services, surely there the obvious thing to do then is to refer to you.
Well, you see, yes, that if the substance misuse team exists, but you see the substance misuse teams aren't existing throughout the country. They're only in certain areas.
Okay.
So even the families fall down when you say, please go back to your substance misuse team, they're like, where's that?
Okay.
You know?
I think it would be helpful, Chair, if we could tease out this issue with the HSE and maybe ask the HSE to provide us with a statement on the substance misuse team resourcing across the country. And, you know, I just... This is an operational issue. We'll obviously make strategic recommendations, but this is a real operational issue that I think we need to better understand as a committee and engage with the HSE on. So if we could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. McGovern, I think it was 30 years you said, and you're right, you know, drugs in Ireland and drug use, it's just so changed completely and dramatically. And I suppose our challenge is in making our recommendations, and there's a new drug strategy imminent as well, that we want it to be informed in a way that it will deliver a response and a strategy that's going to enable people like you to be scaled, you know, properly scaled. So obviously sustainable funding, more universality around the consistency of coverage and resources and that. But could you talk a bit more in detail in terms of, like, when you talk about psychosocial supports and medical supports to deal with the complexity of all of the substance and the addictions, not just the substance, like what type of professionals need to be identified, recruited, and resourced to adequately address it on a national basis? Because let's face it, you know, I think we all understand this, but I don't think it can be said often enough publicly. Drugs isn't a marginalised issue. You know, it is mainstream, it is everywhere, and I hear it from all my colleagues all the time.
Yeah, so great question. I think first of all, maybe tease out the drugs. Where a doctor is probably vital, and it's a contentious issue because we're, you know, in other jurisdictions like in the UK, they're looking at non-medical prescribing, so nurse prescribing, people who are able to prescribe. In fact, I mean, as one expert over there said, that if we were to rely on doctors to do our prescribing for detox, etc., we'd have to shut down. We just wouldn't have enough. We wouldn't have the funding for that. So there are certain addictions that you know, where you're embarking on a detox or sometimes maintenance, and those drugs will be like opiates, so opiate substitution treatment. One where there's a dearth of services, it's very, very patchy, either not existent at all or at the whim of a doctor, is benzodiazepine detox. It's a really huge problem. We don't have enough outpatient community services, nor do we have enough inpatient services in that regard.
Dr. McGovern, I might have to stop you for a minute. We're just a little bit over, and I want to move on to Senator. I promise I will allow you to answer that question very shortly, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Senator Nicola.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks everybody for all of your opening statements. Very considered, and we appreciate it. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of people mentioned dual diagnosis, just because we are discussing the mental health bill in the Seanad at the moment. On the ground, I think, Nicola, you might have mentioned it, and Noel, I think you did as well. So just both of you, if you had a feeling, whether or not you feel that we are catering for people adequately who are presenting with a dual diagnosis, just in relation to access to services, whether that is access to a mental health facility if they are in addiction, or access to an addiction treatment centre if they have a mental health issue for which they are receiving medication, because you know sometimes you can't have anything in your system depending on what treatment centre you're going to. So, Nicola, if you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, well, you know, we have many, especially young guys and young girls, who do present to us with dual diagnosis. And what happens to them when they come in to us is, you know, we have a doctor, a GP, on a daily basis, and we have nurses there in our detox centre 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I find for a percentage of those people, these young guys and young girls really, really struggle when they come into us. And very often we maybe have to refer them back out to our local psychiatric hospital, of which we will bring them there. When they arrive there at the psychiatric hospital, be it Portlaoise or wherever, who are very, very good and probably absolutely inundated with the amount of people that they have coming through their door, and they do try to help us as much as they can. These people, maybe because they're not from the catchment area, they're not originally from Laois, or they're not originally from Kildare, because that's where we're based, and if they're from Limerick, they will bounce back to us again. And they will be told, go to your own psychiatric department where you belong to, in Limerick or Cork or Galway or wherever it is. So it's like it's the chicken and the egg sometimes.
Yeah, so it's an operational thing as well, but it's also missing the holistic piece of actually treating the two things at once.
Absolutely. And I think some girls and some guys really do struggle with us under the therapy and under group therapy and individual group counselling when they are on huge amounts of medication coming into us.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do see the need, absolutely. I'm a long time working in Cumra. I do see the need at times for medication. But like the doctor is saying here, the benzodiazepines, it's a huge, huge problem for these people, and to detox off it. It's very complex at the moment. I could sit here, to be honest, and talk about it until tomorrow. Yeah, there's big, serious issues out there at the moment.
So we haven't got there yet. We absolutely
have not got there yet. No.
Yeah.
No. Sorry, Gerry.
Yeah, no, I was just talking to one of our managers, and we were talking about this recently, and she says, you know, we need access to a dual diagnosis consultant, you know, in each area, you know, that. Yeah.
And do you have access to clinical nurse specialists in dual diagnosis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah.
But not a consultant?
No.
Okay. Noel, did you have...
Yeah, so we're very lucky in that way. We're not too far from Trinity Court as well, but that's a psychiatric-led team there as well, so we can refer to there. But we also have a consultant psychiatrist that comes in for 1 day a week. Now, that's been massive support for us, because on our programme we do allow people to be on medication if it's for mental health issues. So that we do have some people on our programme, and there's research that shows that attending programmes like us will being treated for the mental health issues as well is a huge benefit to them.
Yeah.
So you get to engage, you get to do educational stuff, you get to do psych education, you get to learn, learn about the mental health, because that's a lot of that is a big sort of game changer when someone actually understands what's going on with them, and they're being told that sort of the background to why they are feeling the way they are.
Did you say a consultant psychiatrist or?
Yeah, we have a consultant.
Okay, because this came up before with Cuan. They have access to a consultant psychiatrist in the women's residential facility, but not in the men's, and they really need it in the men's as well. Just about that.
So we have a man called Dr. David Mhuire. He's excellent at his job as well.
Yeah.
He's really good, really works well with the participants. He spends a lot of time with them and support them through it, and he sort of works in a recovery way as well. So it's not overly sort of prescribing as well. There's a lot that goes on.
Yeah, it's more rounded. It's more holistic,
definitely.
looking at the whole person.
And it works. It does work.
Yeah. Sara and Mary, just in relation to Aislinn, I actually can't. I can't believe that it's a national service. I know it's in Ballyraggett. I know it well. I thought it was just for the southeast. So I think that's something, again, it's more kind of a communication operation piece. If the HSE is kind of, you used the word gatekeeping. I won't say that, but
Gatekeeping is light. Sorry.
And then Aiséirí, is similar. So Aiséirí, actually, I spent a week in Aiséirí about 13, 14 years ago. I had a family member in addiction, and I did the family programme, and it was a week long, and it was so intense. It was hard, but it was brilliant, because I used the time to kind of try and understand things better and help my brother a little bit better. But is that also, you're saying now, anyone could be referred from Galway over to care?
Yes.
Same thing?
Yeah.
And you're saying that you're not getting, is it just Aislinn, you're not getting the same level of referrals?
Just Aislinn. So
Okay.
just with the young people. With the adults, there's the normal string of referrals coming into the adult services, very smooth, and the waiting list isn't horrendous, so that's really good.
And the treatment programme, remind me how long it is?
So for the adults, depending on whether they require detox, they'll be in care 4 weeks normal treatment, and add detox then could be up to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Just a note around the dual diagnosis piece that you were saying.
Yeah.
So in our adult service, we're looking at about 60% of our admissions are dual diagnosis, and with the adolescents, you're looking at 80% of our admissions are dual diagnosis. Now, we've had to employ, obviously, a consultant psychiatrist for the adolescents. So that's Dr. Bobby Smith, who comes down out of Trinity Court down to us in Kilkenny. And then we have a level 2 GP for Kilkenny for the detox and in care, and a consultant psychiatrist for the adult services. But again, it has to be employed to attend. Now, that's absolutely vital. Dual diagnosis is through the roof.
And is your policy sorry, I'm out of time, but just your policy around being on medication when in treatment, what's?
Any medication other than those that are addictive are allowed in Aiséirí.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Nicola. Senator Rowan.
Thank you, Caherlock. I think sometimes I hate being further down the list, because I end up with a million things I want to say. But I suppose I want to, and not to put anyone on the spot, but obviously I understand, Brian, you're here as General Manager of Soilse, okay? But for me, I didn't realise that the HSE had a facility in relation to being a General Manager of particular services that maybe always been there, I don't know. But I'm very aware of you having a response to some of the things that are being said in the room with a different hat on, right? So apologies for putting you on the spot for that, and if you don't want to comment, you don't have to comment. But I suppose to come to the treatment piece, in relation to, not only in relation to children, but there's a huge amount of blocks, especially in relation to medical detox. The fact, obviously, that when you do have to find a tier 3 service that's in the position to actually do an assessment, there's a requirement that seems to be only, and I can be corrected again, I think it's, if Brian's okay, he can correct it if information is inaccurate. But it seems to me that CHO5 particularly seems to be implementing a new model that's been
implemented, which came after the new model that already came in relation to how funding is given to treatment in particular CHOs. I know if it's not taken up in full in some CHOs, it's being sent to other CHOs maybe where there's greater need, but where the block seems to be coming in CHO 5 is that Tier 3 programme, if it has the capacity to actually work with an individual, is required to work with an individual, I think for about 6 weeks. There's about, I think, a 26-page assessment process. There's about 6 weeks of counselling or key work, and that's even given that Tier 3 initiative actually has access to key workers to be able to do the instance of assessment for that particular treatment to go into actually residential. And so there seems to be a scattered approach to how the funding is applied, the fact that the services at that Tier 3 to be able to actually refer into Tier 4 are not necessarily on the ground in every community in the first place. The counselling specific piece is a problem for many services on the ground, and then it's only then will the application be assessed at that Tier 4 level or at the HSE level in terms of funding. Okay, so that's one example. CHO 5, other CHOs are reporting other things. So I do have lots of questions. I would like Garrett to speak to the fact of the outdated treatment systems to kind of put some of those other options on the table. But I do think we're talking about the treatment flow, and I'm not sure we're getting it accurate, and maybe we do need to come in at another point with to lay it out further. But if Brian feels he's in a position to give his insight there, because I think I'm getting that he thinks it's a different comparison to what we're experiencing maybe on the ground, and I think it might be good to have it on the record.
Yeah, so I can talk from the North Dublin context in relation to treatment episodes for Tier 4 for the Ashland. So through ourselves, it usually goes through Dr. Gerry McCartney, who's our consultant and adolescent child psychiatrist. So if a referral is required to go to treatment, well then Gerry will make that decision on whether the person should go to treatment or be treated in the community, and that's his clinical opinion. So, and I think that would go the same for any clinical team around the country, that if the clinicians decide that child doesn't need to go to treatment and can be treated in the community, well then that's their clinical opinion. And I think that needs to be put into the conversation and put on the record. So I think there's an opinion that knowing what isn't coming towards a treatment centre and what does go, that's within the community teams. Now, I take your point that CHO5 may have a different system, and I'm not aware of that, and maybe they would be best to talk about that, you know, if you would like the HSE to give a statement on that. But I know that in our area, the process is they come in, they go through the residential episode, now they follow out, they fill out the comprehensive and initial assessment, which is for every single treatment centre in Ireland. They all follow the same process. So as that piece Noel talked about earlier on, that they're done one assessment and that assessment travels. So whilst it may seem overly comprehensive for a child, that's the process that they have in place, and that's what's been agreed.
In terms of adults then as well, so what I'm getting back, I'm constantly trying to, especially people just fresh out of prison, if they're not caught between Des Crowley, say, and somebody on the outside, they're getting completely lost in terms of medical detox, benzo detox. We're trying to get them into Tier 3 services, which is really problematic because they may not have a counsellor, they may not have a key worker to work with them. So there's people actually disengaging because the process has taken so long from the actual assessment point to accessing a counselling, to filling out the form, to being able to get into residential. So there's definitely a block, and I think we should come back to it.
Yeah, we should.
And I'd like to potentially just maybe give the last minute and a half there to Garrett to speak to other options in relation to treatment, because obviously the methadone protocol is decades as long as you are in the game, I suppose, is there and needs to be assessed.
Yeah, so on the ground we are seeing less opiate related presentations. We're getting more and more inquiries about other drugs. So the drugs that are emerging drugs and drugs that are established. I mean, benzodiazepine's been around for a long time, and really we have neglected to create services to meet that need. I think that need is bigger than we think, but anybody, I'm sure, on this panel here will say that when you look at a polydrug picture, benzos are in there somewhere. Probably the one that is mimicking that is pregabalin, and again, no services. We don't even have guidelines. I mean, I went abroad to see that they have international guidelines about this emerging problem, and they don't. You know, our nearest neighbours are the UK. And then we've got all the other ones, the cat, which, you know, would have been head shop drugs, synthetic grass, and ketamine is a really big one now. And we're seeing more and more people presenting with ketamine and the physical complications, and there's some really awful psychological but also physical complications that we've nothing for them. And we call it HSE addiction services, but really it's HSE opiate addiction services, because without an opiate problem, you're not getting in. And that needs to be looked at. And you know, okay, I may be creating a rod to beat my back. People say, you know, do you have capacity? Of course we have capacity. Of course we could take people on. We need to start doing it. The problem we have is that not all the services under the HSE addiction services umbrella are all doing the same thing. There's a mishmash of what people are doing. People have ideological ways of doing things. That goes right back to the way in which we approached this punitive approach to people who are being prescribed. Back then it was methadone only. It's buprenorphine and methadone now. The current landscape is very different. We know that. The treatment hasn't really changed very much. It has a bit, but not really. And people's hands are tied. I mean, I work in a lot of community, as you know, and I work in a lot of community projects out in town, and they're getting lots of calls about these other things. And there's not a huge amount you can do for them. I mean, if somebody has a benzodiazepine detox, you can talk till you're blue in the teeth and try and help them and support them, which is absolutely pivotally important. But without a detox, they're not
so
going to get...
we do effectively, and I'll finish on that, there's very little medical detoxes in the country, and we need an increase massively. I remember 20 years ago I used to have to fight for people to go into to 3 places that were in Beaumont. I think there used to be 3 public places. So it's not a new issue. I mean, so thank you.
Thank you, Senator Owen. Deputy Murko.
Gurmaiga Cahirlook, the Soilse Roof Kildare. Because my first question was going to be just in relation to straightforward capacity here, but I think it's a wider needs analysis you need, in the sense of what sort of service do we need to be offering across the board, and then what sort of resources we need to do it. And then I think nobody is shocked in relation to the referral issues, because that they are the systems, unfortunately, that we create in Ireland, and we can't necessarily get the service to the people that need it. And I suppose, Garrett, we're now talking obviously about poly drug use across the board. So even if someone has an opiate issue, like undoubtedly from time to time they have used crack cocaine, they have here obviously benzos and a million and one other things, anything that goes, for the want of a better term. So even if you have somebody that is looking to get, and I get it, not everybody is ready to go into proper addiction service, but at this minute we do. Even if we do not have the system.
No, we don't. No.
You're saying we have a capacity, but we don't have the system. Now, I would still say we need a greater level of resources.
Yeah, we do need a greater level of resources. But one of the things we did, for instance, just to give you a simple example, I mean, there was a time we were seeing every single patient every single week. And you'd come to a clinic and the place would be just teeming with people. And then somebody said, why are we seeing patients every week? Why don't we not, resist burnout and see people every 2 weeks? And now we're seeing people, a lot of people once a month, and it creates a lot of space for us. And as a result of space, we can definitely take on more patients. Now, it's a bit tricky because there are doctors back in the day, and I was involved in the whole, Irish Medical Organisation thing around how many patients should you see. That's outdated. I think there was a thing going around that, you can only have 12 to 15 on your list. It's nonsense. You can have as many as you can treat. I mean, you have to remember, I work in services where there's a lot, like multidisciplinary teams. There's a lot of people doing different things, and we meet once a week and we discuss cases and stuff like that. So, there's no excuse really for people who have a need for a medical detox in the community to be able to get that detox. We should be able to do it. Yes, we do need more resources, and we probably will need more prescribers. And as I think I mentioned earlier on, we probably, and I'll get, as I said, pilloried for this by my profession, we need non-medical prescribers. No question about it. We're not going to be able to do this on our own. We don't have the level of expertise in terms of numbers, just the quantum of expertise experts to be able to do it. And I also think we need, I mean, it'd be interesting to get the views of the rest of them, because a lot of them are dealing with Tier 4 service. I always feel that there is this abstinence versus harm reduction sort of polarisation, and there's also probably not as good, and we're as guilty as Tier 4 are in this, the sort of, you know, collaborations between Tier 4 and Tier 3 and other tiers probably isn't as good as it could be.
But here, see on some level,
Yeah, I mean,
is there not a requirement on the state to take a look at what is there and back to that needs analysis and then to plug the gaps as much as we can, because we're failing people, and it's having a long-term impact not only on those people and their families, but we all know the chaos that's caused by, you know, addiction, but particularly.
And also people move along those tiers. I mean, I have patients myself. I'm very lucky enough, you know, to be able to set patients where my catchment area is into places like John O'Gall's. But again, there's problems there because, you know, it's health insurance. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be related to, you know, whether you can afford to pay for treatment. But we need, I will have patients that cannot be managed in a community setting and they will need to go into an inpatient service. And I just think the whole thing doesn't go on a straight line at all. It's kind of little short roads, it stops, and then the others. There's a rough terrain, and then there's another road picking it up. And I just think that needs to be.
Yeah, we've individual operations doing decent work, and in some cases, an awful lot, including yourselves, outliers, you know, making it work better than it does, but it doesn't all fit together. No. You know, and could I just put a question to Gerry, and in fairness, Mhuire is one of those services we'd have used ourselves, and here personally I'd have dealt with Pat McGinn an awful lot, and like an awful lot of service, I suppose I would ask you in relation to see the service you want to provide and you would like to provide, and the means of people getting into it. You know what I mean? Where would you say that's at the minute? Because I would always find, and I accept, you'll never have enough resources given the issues with addiction in Ireland. But it is all those added issues, you know, where people have to come in a particular way. They, you know what I mean? Let's say that they have already engaged with some service. Anyway, I should let you answer rather than me waffling.
Thank you. You know, I suppose 10 years ago, 80% of people looking to come in, we would have got them in within a week. Now that has drastically changed. We'd be looking at 20% in, you know, within a week. You know, there's a 4 to 6 week waiting list. So obviously, the demand outstrips our capacity. You know, and one of the areas, and Nicola had mentioned when she was reading it out, is, you know, our step down houses. We can't get housing for people, you know, in the step down houses, and that's, you know, blocking beds, for want of a better word, you know, in a treatment centre, because if you put a lot of work into somebody doing a programme, you don't want to be sending them out back to the streets or that. So that's one area. Also too, you know, education all around drugs. I think it was, you know, Deputy Burke mentioned it earlier, you know, I feel that's important.
But I suppose in what specific way though?
Our attitude to drugs, young people, you know, understanding of drugs, you know, and all the rest of it, and the harms, you know, that can be done.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Deputy Mhuire.
Look at the referral system. You know, we have many people self-refer, probation, loads of different people refer people to us. But the problem is our waiting list. Yeah. It really is our waiting list. And, you know, motivation for some people can be fleeting.
Get them in the moment, or you
get
don't
them
get
in
them.
the moment. And I don't see it as a window of opportunity, but that is the way it is. And the delays are killing engagement. They really, really are. Like, I had 150 ladies on a waiting list Christmas week and 150 men on a waiting list to come into Athy on Christmas week. And if we're taking in an average of 20 people a week, be it men or women, how long is that waiting list for those people?
Then it's the additional
Deputy
services
Mhuire, I'm going to have to
Oh, so sorry, I didn't realise it was over time.
Thank you, and thank you, Nicola. Let's round to my questions now. Dr. McGovern, not to in any way accelerate the pillorying, but I didn't really understand the non-medical prescribers. Could you explain that a little bit more to me?
Yeah, so as you know, as it stands, you have to have a medical degree to prescribe drugs. There is a small amount of people, I think nurses in this country, that can prescribe, but I don't think they can prescribe drugs for these purposes of detox. So basically, if you look at the UK, they have a fairly established model over many years. They realised that they weren't going to be able to treat, for instance, the opiate problem in the UK if they were just to rely on doctors. A lot of the expertise, and many of them I would know from my earlier days, a lot of that expertise retired and wasn't necessarily replaced with like for like. But what they said, we need to sort this out. So what they did was they held courses, really well organised courses for people, not necessarily just nurses. There are other areas that can do this, and it allowed them to prescribe. It started out initially as in what was called a supplementary prescribing capacity, which would be the doctor would kind of do the main prescribing, and they'd be supported by the doctor. Then it went to independent prescribing, which is they can prescribe and they have their own indemnity and all that sort of stuff. And it just it's caught on over there. It hasn't caught on over here. I think there is a resistance within the medical profession for it to happen. I think it needs to happen because I just don't think in my own area of addiction treatment there is nearly enough people to. I mean, I do a clinical lead job in CH08, and for years there was a waiting list down there. We managed to get rid of the waiting list. We were able to. We realised that whilst there wasn't an awful lot of prescribers down there, one of the things COVID taught us was that we could do virtual clinics or virtual options. So we were able to get people who had capacity to take on more people in Dublin. I was one of them, actually, to get people onto a script. And they would have local supports. And that's worked very, very well. I mean, absolutely incredible service down there in terms of nursing support, very, very, very expert. And there's a lot of work in that. But there are ways of doing things if you put your heads together. But that one about the independent prescribing or non-medical prescribing is probably a thorny issue. And I think if you talk to Peter Kelly, he was the head of International Society of Nurses in Addiction. He's been fighting. He's done actually some research on that. If you want, Gary, I can send it on to you. He's an incredible guy. I know him, and he's really pushing for this.
That's excellent. If you could send that research
I will
indeed.
Sure,
disseminate. Yeah, thank you. One of the more frustrating things I've heard in the last year I've been doing spokesperson in the area of justice is various different people tell me that judges sometimes send people to prison in the absence of any treatment options. I've heard it while visiting prisons. I've actually heard it from the minister. I've heard it in different forms. Based on your engagement with people who come to you, you offer treatment to, what sort of impact has prison had on a person's lives?
Well, certainly for us, it's massive. I mean, the level of trauma, this isn't just with the adults now, this is with the young people. We've had young people come to us that have ended up in Oberstan, obviously, but have gone on over 18s and ended up in Clover Hill and various places. The long-term damage is absolutely unmerciful for these young people when realistically they were unwell as a result of their illness of addiction and had maybe acted out in some shape or form. But it's absolutely life-changing for them to have been imprisoned.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Anyone else? Tony, please. Yeah.
Just to speak to the fact that we also have people who are engaged in the recovery process in the therapeutic communities or in our day programme. For instance, we have an example recently where somebody who went into prison with 18 months abstinence from all mood and mind altering chemicals, having engaged with the various services through stabilisation, detoxification, treatment, and then to us for 18 months. And he's reincarcerated now. He's put back into prison there just before Christmas. So that's another problem as well. So swings and roundabouts, you could have the revolving door woken against you, because most of the population in the main jails have drug-related issues.
I think it's a wider issue. I mean, why are many of these people in prison? And you don't see them in directly for possession of alcohol because alcohol is legal. We see many people in prison for alcohol-related crimes. That's no doubt about that. But as long as drugs remain criminalised. A huge amount of people are in prison because one way or the other, because of drugs. And I would hope, having gone through the Joint Justice Committee in 2022 and the Citizens' Assembly, we're all calling out for a health-led approach and not a punitive approach. And we need, there's some people are uneasy about that, and I understand that. I absolutely respect anyone who's uneasy about that and uneasy about the possibility of drugs being decriminalised or even legalised. But what we can't do is stand still and pretend that it'll change on its own, because it won't change on its own. We've got to make sometimes brave steps, and we need to monitor the brave steps. One of the things I've often heard is we can't let that cat out of the bag, or whatever. If we let it out of the bag, we won't get it back in again. That's the whole idea of evaluating anything. If we're going to make changes in our drug policy, we need to evaluate what those changes are, and we need to have measurable outcomes to see are they successful, or do they need to be tailored, or indeed do they need to be dropped.
Yeah. Just a final question, if that's okay, and I'll let you come in shortly. Sir, just in relation to the education programmes that you're running in schools, and I know there was a couple of different calls for education, awareness. There is a growing body of evidence, though, that talks about the dilemmas of education in terms of sometimes it can also be a factor in potentially not encouraging by purposely, but when you speak a lot about drugs in school environment, sometimes it becomes an awareness to the concept, and there's a growing body of evidence. So what evidence are you basing those education programs on when you're in schools?
Yeah, no, that's very, very valid. But I guess, you know, when you look at what the young people can access now, even online, it's phenomenal what they're exposed to nowadays. Within the education programs itself, we're doing it in collaboration with the HSE education officer in Tipperary. But again, probably the lived experience is probably the best education piece or tool that can be utilised. So we would lean a lot on lived experience within our education pieces.
Thank you. So we can open up for a second round. We'll just go in the same order, if that's okay.
Yeah.
It'll be 4 minutes of Senator Nicola and then Senator Owen.
The postcode lottery thing is a problem. I can't remember, a couple of you actually said it. I think, Sarah, you might have said it as well, just in terms of access to services and the access, but also like the type of services that are in your local area. What kind of a challenge does that present?
Well, certainly for us, and I did point to it around the postcode lottery, and even what Brian spoke about there in regards to, say, the young people coming to us, that's an example of it working well, and we have examples of that in different areas of it working well. But unfortunately, in many parts of the country, it's not working well, and so people aren't able to access the services, irregardless of whether it's in their area or not. When I say access to services, I mean the funding for the services. So it is a huge problem in the postcode issue.
Is there like one part of the country that is known within the sector to be poorly serviced, like very poorly serviced?
Well, just as I referenced, from my perspective, we've fantastic substance misuse teams that we work with in Dublin, Cork, and Tipperary, and that's it.
That's it? Like, you work with them, or that's...
They're the most established, the most
okay, so that's where the good stuff is happening.
The smooth referral pathway, the pathway that would have originally been put in place by the national framework that is working well, has been through those areas only. And Minister Renan there referred to it, you know, different processes for different areas is very real. And then difficulties with processes where we had the year before last, 2024, referrals stopped. We had 28 people within the HSE system nationally that needed to come to us, were ready to come to us, and it was stopped because of the funding, and some of those individuals didn't make it.
Do you mean it was stopped because of the funding? I thought you said you were quite well funded. Do you mean the funding at a local level?
For the young people,
yeah.
And for the adult service, it's bed night capacity, you know, so it does run out.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just conscious that you've all made the effort to be here today, and I'd like to just know if you're happy with what we've covered today, or is there something that you came here really wanting to tell us as a committee? Because we've got some really brilliant statements from everybody today, but was there something
Just
that we
one
haven't got
thing,
to?
yeah.
Thanks, Mary.
It's looking at treatment. We tend to look at treatment all the time,
Yeah.
but we should also be looking at recovery. And as the doctor said, there's different journeys. Like we have young people that don't stay absence, but they're harm reduction and they lead a really full life. But it's to build recovery capital.
The aftercare piece.
Yeah, but it's even more than that. It's looking at recovery and getting people to talk about how they gained recovery. We're looking at Waterford as a social map of what kept those people well, what kept them in recovery. Like there's a whole load of things that can help people stay in recovery. And we need to be looking at that as well as like in medicine. The HSC, you tend to count, it's very easy to count bed nights, but to count recovery net is hard to put because it could be harm reduction, it could be total absence, but there's a whole scale that needs to be looked at and measured, and the quality of their life, their relationship with their families. That's what we need to build, and that's what we work on all the time. It's not absence, yes, is the end goal, but there's an awful lot of other good being done along the way, but it's very hard to measure it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How do you measure it?
There's
How do you
social
report
ways,
it?
there's social map, and there's a whole load of different, from a sociology point of view, and that of looking at it. And that's what we're looking at in Waterford, because there's a huge success in Waterford with the support of the Department of Social Protection through the CE schemes, the Hubble, Rethink Ireland. Like, we're going every place to find. It's like, as the doctor said, they're on a patchwork. You've Hubble here, you've Rethink Ireland, you've Probation Service, you've HSE, you've County Council. It's a minefield, and it's to try and put it all together. But it does work when there's giant upthinking and cooperation. And the National Voluntary Drug and Alcohol sector have a huge impact on looking at, like we're in Tipperary, we're doing that to see can that be copied in other towns and other rural areas. Like working with Merchants Quay, working with all the different services. Cool Mine.
Yeah. That's a great point, Mary. I don't know why you didn't say that sooner.
No, but the title is recovery, so...
I know, but it's really important, though, because there is life after recovery, no matter what way the recovery comes.
It's huge, and our staff, that's a Minnesota model, the give back and the belief that people in recovery have. They engage in volunteering, they engage in the community.
There's huge empowerment.
A phenomenal bunch of people,
Thanks very much, Mary.
Gerry has his hand up as well, Chair.
Sorry.
There's great emphasis on aftercare, and we talk about for a minimum of 2 years, to go after you've completed treatment. Also, too, in our transition houses, we have the CE schemes, and we find them a great benefit, of getting people back into employment with training and all the rest.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Nicola.
Thank you.
Senator Noel.
Just to kind of lead on from the conversation around recovery, which I think we really need to have in a much more transparent and open and a way that we feel comfortable with, because I think sometimes people think that when you're talking about harm reduction, that you're somehow, and I think it was mentioned earlier on, that there's somehow something oppositional happening there, and that serves nobody, because on the other breath, we constantly talk about one shoe size doesn't fit all, and that we want our services and we want our responses and we want all of that to be as varied as possible. And I suppose what that makes me think of then is this idea of abstinence versus stability, and how we really need to have a conversation about how we define recovery, and how if we define it and then impose it, we're doing the same old thing, but under the banner of recovery. So instead of working with people to define what stability looks like for them, like the likes of Aiséirí and Soilse, I've long sent people in that direction. I've always admired the work there. But I have other people that I've worked with that I know are not going to fit within that space, and I'm wondering how we work on that so that everybody sees that recovery it's not an end goal. Like, it's not that someone's stable now, but you're still going to get to the recovery bit. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, how do people have comments on that? Because I would hate to feel that people feel left out when they've made, huge changes to their lives. They're going out to work, but there may still be a small bit of substance use, or there may be something, but their life is not in the same sort of threat or chaos that it used to be, and how important that is for them.
Thanks. Could I take that for a moment?
Totally.
We're based on an abstinence-based model as it happens. We don't make apologies for that anymore. We don't go down the rabbit hole of us versus them abstinence-based harm reduction. I think that abstinence is the ultimate harm reduction. But the people I'm serving have been in the service sometimes for decades. Like, currently we have people who've been in the service for 3 decades. Because addiction, just like recovery, is not linear. There's There's roundabouts, there's swings, there's dead ends, there's T-junctions. You know, people can get lost in the abyss of that. But when they get to the point where they want an abstinence-based model, it should be there. It should be funded. We've been in existence now for over 25 years providing that, and it hasn't been resourced. And we're looking for that to be resourced. So we're looking at the people who are doing the research, who are at the cutting edge. The good doctors spoke about that. People who are doing the individual and the colleges that are giving us the evidence-based models to practice. We need to be able to operate out of evidence-based models, but we also need to be able to back practice-based evidence, where people are actually doing that, and it's working.
I completely agree with abstinence-based facility for people that want abstinence-based. So I'm not saying that the abstinence-based place has to become for all, right? So I'm not saying that. It's more around the language we apply to recovery. So that operating out in the ether, how that manifests into people's kind of observations of themselves or whether they've been successful or not. Not that we need to we have harm reduction, they can all work together and people probably move between them at different stages. So that's definitely not the kind of point I'm making, but it's the narrative and the cultural understanding of what recovery may mean in its widest context.
Absolutely, and I think there could be a rabbit hole we go down there in relation to, as I said, the people we serve have been on all ends of the continuum of care, from the psychiatric wards to the prisons, from rough sleepers to residential therapeutic community for long periods of time, from methadone maintenance, stabilisation, detoxification. We're talking about the same people. And as I represent half the care recovery group and the model of abstinence.
And the ultimate capital being that you're not a criminal.
And not only that, we're breaking the recidivism.
Because of your drug use.
We're keeping the people out of prison. We're breaking the cycle of addiction generationally. And multi-generations, because I'm of an age where I've been seeing generations of people coming through, and now we're breaking that cycle. So we haven't been in that rabbit hole of us versus them. We've never gone involved in it. We think, we're dealing with the same people.
And I think just to finish on the recovery capital piece, I think it's very important when we do work with people, for me anyway, that there's always an advocacy role that should never be suppressed by, the state, by civil society suppression that is happening a lot in terms of people afraid to speak out for particular things. If the people who use our services, use your services, if they are seen by the state as criminals for the mere fact that they use drugs now or have used drugs, it's very hard to build up the other capital of education, employment, travel. That's they're all parts of capital and parts of recovery capital. So for me, they can't be fully ever separated.
And I think just on that as well, that recovery has become more visible now, and I think that's a good thing, But we're also in a situation where the problem that we've been addressing now, and it's become kind of popular, and some of the colleagues here have alluded to it there, where we have lived experience. And I think, and recovery capital, we heard Noel mention about recovery capital and investment. We've operated the model out there for nearly 30 years.
And now we add in the lived.
And the living experience, And that's what I'm saying. All our people, some of the people who we've been serving have been in every model of the psychiatric ward, the prisons, etc. And sometimes they make it into the abstinence space. It's not linear. But we need to be able to operate our models of best practice. That's what they're talking about. But we also have a model that's working that needs to be backed and supported. So practice-based evidence needs to be taken into account, not just models of best practice, practice-based evidence that we have, and it's been there for nearly 30 years.
Thank you. Thanks for the grace on the time there. Thanks.
No problem, Rob. It's very conscious. We are approaching the end. Deputy Mhuire will come to you in a second. I should come to you now, and then we'll give. I'm just conscious if there's anything anybody hasn't had the opportunity to say anywhere, I've cut you off, or any points you would like to make. I'm terrible like that.
I just cut Rory off.
If I just cut Rory, just as an example of what I've done. Is there anything you'd like to say or contribute? Noel, you seem to be.
I think we have a well-established continuum of care in Soilse, and part of that, the question you're really asking, it's more of a deep philosophical question for each person to answer themselves. Is this what I want? And if you're still on a substance, some of your stuff is limited. You have to acknowledge that. Like, you can't drive a taxi, you can't drive. There's certain things you can do and you can't do. So the abstinent model gives you more freedom to do things. I'm not saying it's the individual that has to decide that what they want. And for us, some people we'd work with, and that's their role, that the route they have to take, and that's fine, and we support them. But I think, I know it's from a lot of the other people, we're lucky in the sense that we established a really good continuum of care. It's over 20 years old, and we know we can't do everything ourselves. We know that. So we developed good relationships with all the different agencies, whether it be for detox, whether it be for psychiatric, whether it be for housing. So when people come in, they get a really good solid care plan. And before they go anywhere, all of that's important stuff is put in place. And then it's the depending on the recovery capital that they have coming in. So nowadays, with drug trends changing, recovery capital is, for a lot of people, you have a lot more. You have degrees, you have housing, you have family supports. But where 10, 15 years ago, you had all opiate users, and it was limited. Now you still get them people in, but they're getting less and less. And more, like 10, 15 years ago, you'd never hear the middle class accent of Soilse. Like, there's a lot of them in there that are middle class kids now, you know. So drug trends are changing, everything is changing. But I think key to all of it is to have a really good continuum of care, so that you're not reliant on yourself. You have your housing, you have your detox prep, you have your mental health support service, you have all the stuff that person's going to need to get from here to here, you know. And within that, someone decides within that I want to stay in a substance, that's fine as well. They shouldn't be judged for that. That should be their journey, and that's the one that, but that's the thing that they have to find themselves, you know.
Thank you. No. Mhuire.
Yeah, I suppose to follow on that, people are all going to be coming from a different place in relation to this, and obviously just the widespread use of cocaine has changed the demographics of, you know, who is an addict now. You could probably say Ireland was set up for this. It's not like we had a great relationship with alcohol over the years. It's back to the other stuff. And when you have money and you have resources, it will be easier, right? You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's easy in relation to dealing with the addiction and whatever means you choose, but then you are more likely not to have the issues as regards housing or as regards those supports that can be provided, right? Unless you've absolutely burnt everything within, let's say, a family circle, and I get every situation is different, but you still have obviously that concentrated issue in relation to drug use, drug abuse within working class areas, and then, you know, the whole impact and the chaos that goes with that. And I suppose I'm back to the thing, I'm taking with your idea of practice-based evidence. There's enough out there in relation to, and I'm back to, we know what the need is in relation to all of this. We know of what's working, and that can be multiple different projects doing multiple different things. It's a case of getting real about it and seeing the size of the problem, and then actually putting it into practice. But like I just have a fear we're going to have a national drug strategy, and even if it said all the right things, we're not going to do anything much different, and every organisation is going to be vying against each other in relation to funding, and we're not going to be any further on, and the more complex cases are going to get more complex, and we're not dealing with Ireland's underlying issue with addiction. So I'd like somebody to be a bit more positive than I am being, and, you know, where do we go from here? Is anyone willing to take that on?
Want to demonstrate some positive point? No.
I just said not a chance to take that one on. I think the issue of the national drug strategy, I think if you don't have a basis for where you need to go,
Agreed.
You need something very clear. In relation to recovery, to go back to Senator Cuan's point, it needs to be there. Recovery is linear. It's not somebody that's abstinent. It's not somebody that's in recovery. It's somebody that's still using substances.
Sorry for interrupting, but it has to be easily accessible at the time and wherever you are, and that's what doesn't exist at the minute.
I agree with you, but I think that there is a state of being, or for people. It's not like we can sit here and talk about treatment episodes and rehabilitation and all the pieces, but recovery is a movement. Recovery is the person that's that was in the criminal justice system and may not be now. They're back out, they're working. They can fall back into drug use. Addiction will continue on. It's a lifelong condition.
Addict forever.
Yeah. So I think that that piece, when you talk about recovery capital and all the other pieces that go alongside it, if you don't have a framework such as a national drug strategy that will talk to that piece, and you will have actions off that, well then we could all get into the negative space and say, oh, sure, it's going to be the same. We've come from a historical place where we had a medical model that was based around opioids. We're not there now. We're in GAA clubs down the country. We have lads that are farmers that are taking cocaine. So you need to have an overall overarching philosophy at how you do your business. If you don't have that, you're in trouble. So I think into the future it needs to be wide open. It needs to take in recovery. It needs to take in harm reduction. It needs to take in everything. It's been too boxed for too long.
Yeah, and then I suppose it's resourcing, but it's resourcing based on here. We know what works. We know the projects that work. We know the problems in relation to communication that you would have spoken about, Garrett, and it's interfacing that properly and ensuring, and not to be overly utopic.
I think that's not government reference it very well. They are resourced. Addiction services are resourced, but they're resourced to focus on opiates.
So
I think that the opiate
no flexibility.
Noel talked about it earlier on. Well, there's a new national drug strategy there that will pivot. So.
And that leaves us on the suspense that we're going to get a viewing of the National Drug Strategy next week.
So,
yeah.
Well, where's the pivot?
Yeah, exactly.
Where should they go?
Thanks. Okay. That seems like a good place to leave. I feel like the EastEnders music should come on or something like this. Folks, thank you so much for your contribution. It was incredibly insightful. We've learned a lot, and hopefully that'll be reflected in the report that we bring forward in June. So thank you. Thank you to the members. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
So there we go. The end of another meeting of the joint committee on drug use within the halls of the Oireachtas, I suppose, the floor of the Oireachtas. But yeah, what are people's thoughts, opinions on that out there? I know for one, I was definitely glad that they had Garrett McGovern there for a change. Was Bobby Smith, was he invited like 2 or 3 times? And his contributions there the last day. I couldn't get over it. I need to go back and remix that video, make a short clip of the amount of times that Bobby talked about drug prevention, drug use prevention. Yeah, he not once did he refer to the term harm reduction, which should be really the focus of it. It shouldn't be prevention. I know that guy, I don't know who he's with just there, talked about abstinence being the... How did he phrase it? He said basically abstinence is the most effective form of harm reduction. Yeah, that was how he said it. Abstinence, yeah. And he's not wrong. He's definitely not wrong that abstaining from a drug is going to reduce the harms that a drug is going to have on you. But also it's going to rob you of the benefits that it might have had for you. You look at things like psilocybin now from the compound in magical mushrooms. If you abstained from that for your life, then you would have missed out on the benefits that it could have in terms of the nerve regrowth, isn't it? The nerve regrowth within the brains. That it's really good for helping offset the degeneration of the brain and different things like that. And you all know about the benefits of cannabis that people are being robbed by. It's crazy. But I would believe options is an effective form of harm reduction. People currently only have the option, if they're going the legal pathway, of alcohol. If there had been other options there, aka cannabis, that's a harm reduction tool. Because alcohol, if it's your only option, then that's unfortunate. It really is. I know definitely for a period there I'd done more harm than good with alcohol. Shifted back to cannabis and no issues until the law come chasing you. That's the only issue I've ever had with cannabis is the legal side of it, to be fair. It's never been a hindrance on my ability to work, to study, to get an honours degree, Bachelor of Science, never. But the law did. The law fucking did. The law upset my ability to get a work, upset my ability to go and further my skills, my experience, by not allowing me to go to the US to attend the UN, ridiculous. Yeah, Cass, pointing out here, you know, if you want to go down that road, the best harm reduction is to never be born, and then you'll never try drugs. You know, that's it. You know, that's such an ignorant view to have, isn't it? Just thinking, you know, that's. I think he said before that he knows it's not the only option, but he did say it's the best for harm reduction. But come on, people need to live. You need to experience life, and I think if you go through life without experiencing, you know, things like magic mushrooms, LSD, you're really missing out. You really are. It's like going to a fucking amusement park, a theme park, and not getting on any of their rides. You know, just listening to other people talking about them and you know, sharing their experiences. Might have been good, might have been bad. Some people might have went on and they got sick. You know, they might have had a bad experience on the ride. Some people come off and it's like, oh, that was the most amazing thing ever. You really gotta try it. You know, so yeah, there's a little analogy for you. Life, theme park, drugs, theme park rides. And it's okay, people can go to a theme park and not get on any, you know, each to their own. But no, it's not me. Yeah, powdered milk, Cassie says there as well a little bit earlier. I'm going to repack that powdered milk maker. Powdered milk, yes. Oh, got to empty the old previous bits from the last powdered milk creation. Spliff actually becoming... what's your thoughts on the medical use side actually becoming a real thing? But look, I'm going to be honest. They're incredibly resistant to it. That the conversation around it is just not happening. I believe the guys actually over in the Telegram were talking about a question asked. I'm going to get it up there on the screen now. A question asked in the Dial, I think it was, by Ken O'Flynn. He's a TD with the Independent Ireland. So here we go. Not sure if this will show enough for you because the Telegram is private view. Oh, it does. Boom. There we go. So pop that back up. Get up there. Ken O'Flynn, Deputy Ken O'Flynn asked Minister for Health the number of patients currently in receipt of medications under special licence in Ireland, just the number of such patients admitted to hospital in each of the past 5 years, the measures being taken to ensure their medication administration is governed by clear and consistent protocols. So that licence he talks about, that's the licence that some patients have gotten access to medical cannabis under. Ministerial exemption, I believe, is the licence. But Minister for Health replies, there are currently 25 patients being treated by cannabis-based products prescribed under the licence pursuant to Section 14 of the Misuse of Drugs Act. That's sad, really, isn't it? 25 patients currently being treated with cannabis-based products in the entire island of Ireland. Sad. The department is not fully informed if or why any of the patients accessing such treatments are admitted to hospital. The prescribing of a drug is its frequency and dosage is a matter for the prescribing clinician, and the Department of Health has no role in this. Regulation 7 of the Misuse and Drugs Regulation 2017 provides a statutory guidelines for the administration of controlled drugs to patients. Departmental officials are currently reviewing the administration of such controlled drugs. I honestly thought there would be more patients being prescribed medical cannabis here in Ireland. I thought there was like 55. That was the number that was thrown around there at a certain point. Maybe the 22 that was listed there excludes those getting access under the Medical Cannabis Access Programme. Yeah, I would imagine that's what is up there, and maybe the 55 are actually getting it under the Medical Cannabis Access Programme. So if that's the case, then you could be talking about 77 patients in Ireland getting access to medical cannabis through one of the two pathways, and an unknown but a much higher number of patients getting access to cannabis via the black market. Oh my god, oh my god. Yeah, Casa, it's something I've pointed out to many people now, actually, since kind of sharing that experience with yourself with coca leaves. Casa saying here the coca leaf is a harmless alternative to cocaine hydrochloride. It was something I definitely would have talked about before, about the traditional uses of it, but definitely after experiencing it myself with Casa, having the coca leaf tea, adding in a little bit of the baking soda just to activate that alkaloid. I didn't really notice much of an effect on the day that we drank it, mild if anything. But you definitely talked about, you could put more leaf in there, you could definitely put more baking soda in there then as well, so you could up the dosage. But I definitely thought it was a great idea for a legal alternative to cocaine use. Again, options, as I only just talked about there earlier, options. If people had options, the opportunity for harm reduction is so much greater. Education, if you could educate people as to why, going down there, having a little bit of coca leaf, stuffing it into the bloody gum, between your gums and your cheek, and again, a little bit of baking soda in there to activate that, is a much better way to get the alkaloid from the coca leaf into your system. You're not bloody snorting it. Like, come on, in fairness, like, you're snorting a powder that you got through an unregulated from an unregulated source. Talk about rolling the dice. Like, that's a serious level of trust to be sniffing something up your nose that you're getting from an unknown source. Like, even if you know the guy you're getting it from and he tells you, boy, it's the best, this is unreal, you still don't know. You still don't know, and it could be the best, it could be unreal, but there still could be some adulterant in there that's doing some untold damage. If you're lucky, maybe it's only just to the lining of the nose, but if you're really unlucky, you might be getting some fentanyl in there, and you might be going in a box. No bueno. It was interesting, I suppose, in that conversation there as well, that there isn't. Garrett McGovern was probably the only person there really who tried an attempt to bring the conversation about decriminalisation into the conversation. It seems like it's a topic being avoided there, and the harms of it, not only on the drug user but the services there for the drug user. It's not really been touched off, but I was happy there with the contributions by Garrett. And as I said, I am definitely going to go back. It's been my intention there all week to go back and make some short clips of some of the contributions given during these committee meetings, make them more consumable to the viewers out there, because these videos, like this one, just hit 2 hours long. Not many people are going to go back and watch these videos. They're 2 hours long. Takes commitment, dedication, fair play to everybody out there watching right now. These aren't easy things to be watching, to be fair. It's painful. It really is painful. But again, knowing the audience out there, most likely 99% of you are from the cannabis consuming community. It's interesting that why is it that we're nearly always the only ones campaigning for drug policy reform? I know in amongst our community there might be people who partake in other form of drug use. It's totally fine, but we only ever fight under the banner of legalised cannabis. I'd love to see a legalised cocaine group, like legalise the coca leaf. That would be great. I'd imagine there'd be a lot of energy within that campaign. But it's like, outside of Casa, campaigning there for coca leaf. He's come from the cannabis campaign. But yeah. But all jokes aside, we should definitely look at decriminalising and regulating all of these drugs, options for people. Like, again, opium, the opium plant, the poppy, that's, again, a safe alternative to fucking shooting up some heroin into your vein. Options, people. Give people options. reduce harm, save lives. So many people could be here with us still today had we these safer options. Like, God. And others people might argue, oh, we would have lost some more because there'd be more people using these things. But you can't really say that, can you? And they talked there, I think, about tobacco use, how a campaign of education around tobacco use, it reduced the amount of people consuming, but the campaign wasn't about prevention, it was about education, about harm reduction. What Castle's saying here, it's a logical conclusion that cannabis and therefore any other plants can't be criminalised. It's true, man, we're being robbed really of our freedoms to experience what the life this planet has to offer. Like nature and consciousness is sacred, 100%, man. Our time is something that can never be given back to us. And man, and the amount of time that's been robbed off me, dragging me to feckin' court cases, you know, bringing me up for interviews, just that alone, you know, it's unforgivable really that they did that to me and to so many feckin' others. And that's really what motivated me, the energy that I get to continue this, is that it's just not right what they do. They want to lock us up, treat us like criminals, reduce the quality of our lives by reducing our ability to get jobs, travel the planet. F that. No way I'm going to stand up and fight in a peaceful manner. But fight nonetheless, you know. If you haven't seen those videos where I went into the guard station and stuff like that Valentine's Day one, I find that to be fairly funny interaction between me and that guard at the counter. It was a lady on that particular day, but I was just bringing in some flowers to express my appreciation for the guards and what have you. But yeah, that was definitely a funny interaction, but the best form of an effective, peaceful protest. I highlighted the fact there of the time wasted, the resources wasted on this, and I done it in a way in which they had to bring me to court because it was cannabis, but they ended up having to throw out 8 cases against me for personal possession of cannabis because it was CBG actually. It was CBD cannabis. It was sold from a CBD store, advertised as a CBD, but it was higher in CBG. Don't know had that anything to do with it, but when they sent it to Forensic Science Ireland, they got a negative result. Whatever that means. Even though I told them in the statements, admitted the fact that it was cannabis, they had to get it tested, came back negative, and they had to dismiss all my cases. Believe there was over 10 guards there in the court on that day, you know. So just tying that in, you know, with the fact that they've wasted so much of my time, that's one of the reasons, you know, I've gone on and wasted so much of their time, or as much as I could afford to waste anyway. Having CBD on prescription is handy if you get caught with bud. Well, to be honest, that's what I'm actually looking to be prescribed by my consultant for my epilepsy is CBD, the Epidiolex. I'd be very interested if I could get a consistent quality source of Epidiolex. Would it help at all alongside some of the other medications, or maybe even actually reduce my reliance on those other medications? Because I don't know if you might have noticed there the last couple of times I've been on streaming, I definitely have experienced the negative effect of one of those drugs where it's after just taking away my ability to articulate myself. I kind of know what I want to say, but I have a difficulty in putting it into words, where I didn't have that before. I'd never really got stuck for being able to come up with ways in which to say what I want to say. I find myself kind of making up words. I meant to say unregulated the other day, and I was like dysregulated or something. I kind of couldn't think of the word unregulated. It's annoying. Yeah, COVID brain fog kept us all compliant. Man, that whole experience of COVID, it was mad. And it kind of really made me wonder, you know, it's like, Jesus, what chance have we to get people to wake up and stand up against, like, drug fucking prohibition and the harms of it? When people fell really quickly into line for that whole COVID stuff and turned on anybody who asked questions of it. Oh. I was away from the computer there while watching the stream a bit earlier. I was still watching it with you alongside from the phone inside, but I was making a fish pie. And I can kind of smell it there now as it's cooking inside. It's probably just finishing up now inside in the oven maybe. Oh, we can't beat a bit of fish pie. Nice crispy crust with some baked egg yolk and topped with a bit of cheese then as well. And yeah, unreal. Casa says, just a bit of forced DNA sequencing in young children who have natural immunity, not the question. Do you know? Oh. And there's still people out there who like would argue for what went on that time. Like, and yeah, people shouldn't have questioned and done their own research. Imagine that was something they were telling us during that period. Like, don't be doing your own research. Don't you be going online and like questioning and looking up like things against what we're telling you. Don't you do that. It's kind of what went on, you know, within the whole drug prohibition thing. I was wondering what bounced in the background there. But that's pretty much what they done during the whole prohibition thing. Do you know, don't question us. Like, drugs are bad. And they still do it with cannabis. I still hear people saying that, yeah, cannabis will rot your brain, but completely ignoring the fact that actually it's prescribed for neurological conditions, and it's shown to actually be neuroprotective. And it's actually been associated with longevity around dementia and things like that. People who consume cannabis actually have the rate at which the population of people who consume cannabis get dementia is lower than the rate of the population who don't use cannabis that get dementia. Yeah, so conveniently ignore all of that stuff. I seem to have triggered people actually. We'll kind of finish up around this thing there if you want. I'll keep waffling otherwise. Is Facebook open? It is. There is a post up on Red FM there. Still people are commenting, replying to it. I couldn't help but, you know. A sec, this should pop up on screen. There we go now. Excellent. There we go. We have them up. There was a post about some young lad who owns a pub, runs his own pub, and they put a post up on Red FM because he's he's appearing in First Dates Ireland. So here we go. I'll have it up on screen. I'm definitely going to have to get back to the 420 news and do a bit more of these kind of things, which you bring some news from around the world on cannabis, but also interactions like this that you might be having while campaigning, both online and out in the real world. But the post basically, we go back to here, is it this the one? Cork's youngest publican Dermot looks for love on first dates. 21-year-old Dermot Lehan from Meelan has swapped pulling points to try pull a girlfriend as the man who took over the bar at 19 in Newmarket, and he appears on First Dates Ireland paired with student teacher Shannon from Limerick. And I wish the both of them the very best of luck in their potential future relationship. But I couldn't help but highlight the fact that this guy is the youngest legal drug dealer. And I point out, yes, alcohol is a drug. And at 19, just shows legalisation and regulation works. The youngest illegal drug dealer is probably about 12 years of age, all because of prohibition and the ignorance around it. Just cannabis legalisation alone would do so much to reduce harm. And I thought that was a fair enough comment to make, not an extreme about it. Like, it was just opening up people's eyes to this, like, to see him as a publican, and he is that. That's a term we have for it. I think people who sold tobacco, aren't they? Tobacconists, you know? And we're kind of conveniently coming up now with, like, these drug consumption rooms and lounges and stuff like that they have now for cannabis, supervised injection centres and things. But at the end of the day, it's all drugs. A pub is basically a drug consumption lounge, room, whatever you want to call it. But people got so upset and triggered by this. They really did. So harm reduction or legalisation regulation does work, because the difference between the age of the people who deal in that drug versus an illegal drug is massive. A 7-year gap there, like, massive. But the comments, the replies I got from it, like, Jojo Sullivan, what's this got to do with the post above? You could have wished the young fella well, seriously. What's it got to do with the post? It's got everything to do with the post. I point out the fact that legalisation and regulation works, that it's great that the youngest legal drug dealer of alcohol is 19. That's happy days. Nick Flavin, Martin Conlon, you sound like great fun. So Nick. And we keep going. Good man, Dermot, you legend. We got a couple of replies there from people. Rachel Levine, Martin, have a drink for God's sake, loosen up a bit. Sound kind of had to reply to that. Let her know I loosened up with cannabis and not drink. Doesn't really agree with my body. Makes me fairly sick. And Murphy J says, "Are you for real?" Tristan, again, here we go. Like, not one of these people challenged what I said. They didn't. They all just attacked my character. That's all they went for. Nobody actually challenged anything within what I said. Nobody argued that the guy isn't a legal drug dealer. One lady, though, did argue that alcohol is not a drug. This lad, Garrett, says my comment is the weirdest comment that he's read in a long time. Guy mustn't be on the internet a lot. But any one of these people could have just liked, disliked the post, a comment, and moved on. You all have to have something to say. This is the lady here, Mary, Nora Mary. What a horrible statement to make. And couldn't help, Mary, it's only the truth. Alcohol is a drug. The young man above is a dealer of that drug, and proud of it too. What's horrible about that? She says, I'm an idiot. Again, name calling, absolutely just it. Like, all character attacks. I can make it easy for this lady here. I said, you can't come up with an argument against what I've said outside of name calling, so I don't think about who, I don't think again about who the idiot is in this conversation. So I would, I'd think again, about who the idiot is in this conversation. One, alcohol is a drug. Two, people who sell alcohol are dealers. Our drug dealers, it's just legal, and we can call them publicans or bar staff. Three, regulations of a drug work, and prohibition doesn't work. There's 3 points from my original comment laid out nice and easy if you tell me where I'm wrong. And again, she doesn't address anything that I says really here. She says, I'm away with the fairies. She says, alcohol is legally sold and is not a drug. Like, is not a drug. Come on. Alcohol is a drink. It's a drink, it's not a drug, and it can be enjoyed when taken in moderation. Drugs that you are on about are illegal. Bad. And they can't be taken in any form because people's brain are totally destroyed by them. You hear that? Like, that's insane. Alcohol is a drink, and it can be enjoyed in moderation, but anything else, it's a drug, and it's going to destroy your brain and you can't take them. Any chance you're on them with the way you're accusing this young man, I'm not making an accusation, I'm just pointing out, highlighting the fact that legalisation worked, and I thought it was a good place to do it again because it's the fucking comment section of the Red FM and that Red FM post. And I'm kind of glad that I did it because look at all the interaction that it's actually after stirring up. A simple little thing, I meant no offence at all to the young fella above who owns a pub. Fair fucking play to him, it can't be easy to do it. I said nothing at all that was in a negative light. It's just that these people see being a drug dealer in such a negative way. It's such a stigmatic view. I know many people who grow and sell a little bit of cannabis, and these people aren't bad at all. They're not bad people, but they're labelled as a drug dealer. They're shown to be a bad person if caught and dragged through the courts. This lad's a drug dealer. It's just it's legal and regulated, and fair play to him. I actually agree with that. It's happy days. You want reputable people in control of the supply of a drug so that they'll actually follow the rules and the regulations around the supply of that drug. And they'll be responsible at the place where they supply. You see somebody who doesn't drink in moderation, they might be after a few too many. You might say, come here, Johnny boy, I'm calling you a taxi there, lad, because you had one or two too many. You know? But Mary, where what do we do with poor Mary? Kind of give her a bit of a reply here, and she doesn't get back to me at all. This lad Christy goes, look, I'm an ex-alco, but this post is neither the time nor the place to go insulting the lad. Again, I'm not insulting him. Like that, the fact that to be called a drug dealer is insulting is even more reason for me to actually put that comment there. It's not an insult. It's not an insult at all. A pharmacist is a drug dealer. Person who sells you tobacco is a drug dealer. If we're going to look at the definition of a drug and what a dealer of a drug is, these are all drug dealers. But this lad, an ex-alcoholic, he says, I wish him all the luck in the world. Takes a bit of bottle to put himself out there, and it certainly does, man. And I agree with you. I wish him all the work and the luck in the world. I'm sorry I didn't include that in my original comment. I point out to your man, you know, so he knows well that alcohol is a drug, and the young fella is a drug dealer. I'm just stating the facts, not trying to insult him at all. Fair play to him, such a young age. But if alcohol prohibition was a thing here, I can guarantee you the youngest dealer of alcohol would be well below 18. My comment was not to insult, it was to point out regulation works because the youngest dealer of an illegal drug is 12. Surely there's always a time and a place to protect the lives of young and vulnerable children. Am I wrong? Am I really wrong? Seriously, like. Alright, Chilbert. I see Chilbert joined the conversation there as well. Spliff saying, was that the 18-year-old redhead fella? Drink is dirt and we need a smoke lounge. We do. We definitely do. There's never been more of a need for this. It's a harm reduction centre. Shout out to Gary Hughes out there who set up one over in Liverpool. The chilling rooms. It's a harm reduction centre. If we can bring people together to socialise, to meet like-minded people, to share harm reduction techniques, if you would call them that. There's a lot of benefit there from bringing people together. Peer-to-peer education works. You might not know something, you see somebody else doing something, and you're like, oh yeah, Dan, they explain, and next, crazy. Do you know, vaping, that's one thing, you know. That's a huge form of harm reduction, but it's not for everybody. As you see there, I've got my, what do Casa call it there, your milk powder maker. Pod says, the state of some people, honestly, the world has fecked humanity as being dumbed beyond belief. Look, man, we can only do our best. Remain hopeful. It's the only bloody world we've got. Unfortunately, I've got 4 kids that when I leave this world, that are going to be there behind me and be bringing up their families. So I'm going to do all that I can in the time that I have here on this becking planet to make it a little bit better. Please God, I can achieve that in some way. Like, even if it's just that little bit better than what it was when I got here. Happy feckin' days. Let's have one more little bowl of powdered milk. But yeah, it's kind of funny when you get a reaction like that. I wasn't expecting a reaction like that from that simple little comment. But I'm kind of glad that I did. I think my comment got more comments than the actual post itself. I kind of get triggered when I see these things, you know, the glorification of one drug over another. I've been on with Red FM there not too long ago, and they were kind of talking about HHC, and it's kind of hard not to talk about cannabis when you're talking about HHC. And I just think the feelings, the opinions of those about cannabis and the same people having a much different approach to alcohol, it's so hypocritical. And I had to do it in their comment section because it's Red FM are being the hypocrites. It's the radio station itself. And I know when I'm on with Neil and he just has to play the, what would you call it? He has to straw man, is that the term? Do you know, he has to argue against what I'm saying. I've gotten him to agree with me a good few times. But he has trouble having me on, because if he has me on, he knows that he's only going to end up agreeing with me. So I don't miss those opportunities. I think it's Adrian Kennedy, is that their show? There we go. Adrian Kennedy, Jeremy Dixon. They had a bit of stuff there. I think they're going to have cannabis being covered on their show. I don't know, is it today? Don't watch these guys a whole lot, but happened to just come across the post on it. Could probably just use a search thing and find cannabis under Yoki. No, it's not coming up there, no. Back to the top. I think there's a search here. Boom. Oh no, they had it on already. Amy Brown was on with them just the other day, and I think she actually had to hang up with them, saying the ignorance with them. She just didn't have the energy to be dealing with the level of ignorance she came up against. But I think they continued with a piece then the following day. I haven't listened to it, but I certainly will listen back. They're on dairy kind, but definitely it's Irish, Irish grown, Irish grass fed. This particular type of powdered milk, actually, it's called Mendo Brett, and it's a very nice one actually as well. Our boy out there in Cork Herbal Products, he was the man who sourced that powder milk, I suppose. The ingredients for it. It's kind of annoying actually as well. You kind of read these comments from ignorant people who talk about it's going to rot your brain with cannabis. But meanwhile, I'm being prescribed an experiment, a drug that wasn't originally designed for epilepsy, that what showed benefit for epilepsy, is now being used for epilepsy. And my consultant, when I said it to him, I'm kind of getting these side effects. I'm noticing like an effect on my cognition, my ability to kind of, as I say, articulate myself. And he's like, yeah, that's probably going to happen. He's like, that might get worse. It's like, sound that. I was like, and you won't entertain the medical cannabis access program. He's like, oh, we just see where we're going with this. Mad. Absolutely mad. I'm just kind of conscious of that, and maybe that's making me more affected by it, because I'm always just worried that I'm going to sound like an absolute tit and make a fool of myself, and then that be used as an argument against the consumption of cannabis, because look at this fellow over there and he's can't even put a sentence together. No, if I'm going to represent the community, I want to do it well. So I have to put those thoughts aside. McDonald's and cigarettes and alcohol are the most destructive to our gut biome. Yeah, that's the thing, man. The ignorance out there is insane. As I pointed out to those people in that comment section, like, do you think the government should have the right to tell you that you can't consume alcohol because it's bad for your health? Do you know, the people that answered that question, not one of them who I asked that question answered that question. And I understand why. It's because once they thought about it, they'd be like, no, the government shouldn't tell me that, because I enjoy my drink. I can do it responsibly. But you can't do cannabis responsibly because that rots your brain. But actually, hang on a sec. Ethanol, the active ingredient of alcohol, the LD50 for that is very low. It's like, is it 3 grams per kilogram of body weight? It has to be consumed within a short period of time. That's easy enough to achieve. People could achieve that, really. If you're going to go out and drink, poachine. But it is definitely achievable. When it comes to cannabis, the LD50, it's just unknown, really. There's no real LD50 to be established. The amount you would need to kill you would actually be the same that would suffocate you. Do you know, the amount of cannabis you'd have to smoke in a short period of time, it's actually the lack of oxygen that's going to kill you before the cannabis. Same when it comes to edibles, you know, you'd have to consume an insane amount in such a short time, but the amount is going to be bloody bigger than your body. You can't get it into you quick enough and you're going to die from internal explosions from, you know, just trying to stuff it in there. It's mad. Absolutely mad, boy. But yeah, when you think about ethanol and the effects that has on the body, it's mind-numbing. It definitely is destructive, especially to the microbiome. And when you look at the microbiome and the connection that the microbiome has with the brain, the nerve, the gut nerve, what's the name of it? The vagus nerve. I think that's the one. The vagus nerve is in the gut, and it's the one that brings the signals to the brain and all of that stuff. Incredibly affected by our microbiome. Incredibly. But yeah, we don't consider that, you know. The government has the right to tell you not to do drugs because they're bad for your health. When are they going to come for that next one? Like, looking at that conversation that had Bobby Smith, the point when he was talking about it, like, I'd say if given the opportunity, he would go for it. Like, he would say, yeah, let's bring about alcohol prohibition. Let's slowly do it. Let's, like, you know, digital ID. Let's just say you're allowed 2 pints a month. You know? And slowly but surely, yeah, we'll cut that down 2 pints every 3 months. Do you know? Are they okay with that amount of control over your lives by the government? If not, why are they okay with it now over our lives? Why has the government got a right to take me away, put me in a cell? You know, I'm making a fish pie there, about to go and enjoy a family meal, be there as a dad to my children. You know, and a very important role for a person to be present at. You know, why do they have a right to take me away from that? Do harm to my kids much more, far beyond the harm that cannabis could do. You know, my kids aren't in there consuming cannabis, so therefore, look, cannabis is doing no harm to them. My consumption of cannabis, look, I'm able to provide for them, I'm able to care for them, and able to have constructive conversations and educate them, parent them, but also, you know, love and guide them, all of that stuff. Cannabis doesn't stop that, but if I'm locked in a cell, that stops it. Oh, those prohibitionists, you know, they're concerned for us about our health. We have to, you know, prevent our use of drugs. Say, get Bobby Smith, like, you know, such love, such care. Prick. Sorry, misrepresenting the community, name calling. Shouldn't name call. Should not name call. Don't make it personal. Attack the argument, not the person making the argument. Casa, I feel like that even on a good day. Pods for 420 that I'm humbled by the indigenous knowledge among certain cultures around plants that I continue to learn. Yeah, that's the education that's out there, the plants can they give us, you know, it's crazy. We're being cut off from that. And yeah, Tinkle Tink's saying here, it's a sick joke. They don't consider alcohol as a drug in the diet, for fuck's sake. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's a subsidised one. It's not only there, but it's subsidised. They have that up in the army barracks here, Collins Barracks, an army which I once wanted to join, an army which I gave up cannabis for over a month, 2 months, to join. I was well up for the medical, and then those boys up in the dial, they effed it up and they brought in a recruitment embargo, you know. They have a bar up there, and it's subsidised for the boys in the army to go and, you know, go on the lash, have a couple of pints with the boys, you know, get a bit of sloshed. They can have birthday parties up there, bring in family and friends. They can all enjoy benefit from that subsidised, you know, drug supply. And I can't help but think, you know, as I walk past there, and it's right next to the Cork prison, like, if they legalise cannabis, if it's legal, it's regulated, will they allow a subsidised cannabis consumption lounge within the army? And if not, why not? Do you know, and is there a case to be made, well, if they're going to exclude cannabis, they have to get alcohol out there. You can't have like allow one drug and not the other. And like, to be fair, cannabis, it's not as dangerous as alcohol. You know, the things that people will do when they're out in the piss. You know, you completely dissociated from your body when you're proper blackout drunk, and you could do crazy bloody things. They allow that up there, but you know, you can't have a few smokes, play a game, chess, darts, pool, whatever. Not allowed that. You know, sit around and watch the UFC, play a game poker. Nah, it's too dangerous, boy. It'd be interesting. To see if things like that were to happen when the guards, when it's eventually legal and regulated. Will you be allowed to be a consumer of cannabis on the guards? Will it be one of the listed banned substances that they're supposed to be drug tested for? But they always kick a fuss up about when the idea of them being drug tested, or the notion of them being drug tested, comes about. I think somebody said there earlier that they're supposed to be randomly drug tested since 2018, but it hasn't happened. GSOC, the Guard Ombudsman, whoever it is, they constantly, GSOC, the Guard Association, isn't it? They keep on kicking up a fuss about it, and no, we shouldn't be doing that to our members. That's unfair. Really? Why? Why is it unfair? Do they have something to hide? Do you know? The boys there and the missing freaking bale of cocaine. Casa says the sad reality is Ireland has a tradition of alcohol use and an ignorance to all other plants since the farmer model took hold of our economy. Yeah, there's definitely a case to be made there as well about that. The alcohol, the pharmaceutical industry, they definitely have a lot of influence over our politicians. And Casa says, I highly recommend going to Thailand and visiting the farms, the temples there, and get the most high you've ever felt following with pad Thai you haven't lived yet. Yeah, man, that was another place we went on an abstinence from cannabis, a temporary fucking tolerance break. When I went to Thailand, we spent just under a month, almost 3 weeks there, just over 3 weeks actually, and didn't consume cannabis for the majority of it. We were on PP Island, I think that's how you pronounce it, for a weekend, and we got a bit of cannabis there from the Rasta Bar. We're like, we can't not have a Rasta Bar and not ask, can you get us a little bit of weed? That was the one and only time we actually sourced cannabis in Thailand, but for the majority of the trip there, we abstained from it because the place was just freaking a high in itself. The training was incredible, but the views, the people, everything, you know, it was just, it was amazing. Man, to go back there and to have cannabis now and all that too. What an amazing, yeah, certainly I'd agree with you there. You haven't lived yet until you experience that, if you're a person who enjoys cannabis and places like Thailand. Alright, Mackie, what's happening? I see Mackie out there, yo. Nice to have you back. He says, hope life is treating you good, bro. Good to see you. Yeah, man, it's mighty to be on here. Just been getting on streaming these meetings that our government have been having. A joint committee on drug use. They've been discussing many things. They haven't really been discussing drug use itself per se. They've only been discussing the harms of drug use and the need to prevent drug use. Some good points, good discussions being had here and there, kind of pushing more towards the health-led decriminalisation and stuff like that. They haven't ever touched off of regulation, the need to legalise, say, cannabis. But there has been some good conversations being had here. Fingers crossed, you know, the report that comes out from this in June is going to be a positive one, and again just pushes the government more towards decriminalising and potentially legalising and regulating a drug like cannabis. So fingers crossed. But yeah, man, nice to see you out there in the hot box. Yeah, there. Casa says there's no loophole under Irish law that allows THCA sales. Yeah, that's unfortunate, isn't it? That was allowed. That was a loophole over in the US, I believe, wasn't it? THCA just fell outside of the scope of their control drugs over there. So the hemp market really took advantage of that one. See, there's just more of it, you know. I'm just trying to, I know what I want to say, but the words just, that's that fucking medication that they have me on. hopefully I can get that changed. Tinkle Tink says cocaine is safer than alcohol. There is a great clip of Colombian president talking about it in the UN. Yeah, there's been some great contributions being made by Colombian representatives to the UN, to different countries. I've definitely witnessed a few of them. But yeah, their country is at a disadvantage because of these drug laws around the rest of the world. Do you know, when you think of the narcos, these guys, these drug gangs and all of that stuff, you know, the dudes, that fool Trump was blown up from airplanes, wasn't it, from bomber jets, whatever they had flying over there. It's like, come on, man, these are vulnerable people probably being taken advantage of by much larger organisations, you know, fucking some local fisherman's down and out in his luck because the shit they're dumping into the oceans there around the world, and their fish populations aren't what they used to be, and they're finding it harder to get by. And next dude comes along and he offers them, like, you know, some life-changing amount of money, you know, which isn't much then by our standards because the cost of living is very low there. If you were to look at it maybe at a dollar perspective, they're probably being offered maybe about, say, 100 grand, maybe about 10 grand even. But that's like a fucking year or two's pay over there for them, and they're not making it in fishing anymore. Lads throw a couple of bales onto the boat, bring it out there, next dead. A dad not coming home to his family, a family not being provided for anymore. Just, man, kills me when you think about that stuff. But our guys here talk about wanting to stop these drug gangs, but really, if you want to stop them, you chop them at, you know, chop them down at the waist, the knees, whatever that term is again. You get them down good. How would you do that? You take away their control of the supply. You know, you put the control of the supply into reputable individuals, reputable organisations, reputable businesses. Boom, there you go. No one getting exploded by picking jets flying overhead. No vulnerable individuals being preyed upon in their, you know, desperate state. They might be, there was a lady there in Thailand. We were only talking about it there yesterday with someone pregnant woman. Taken advantage of, was convinced, you know, to smuggle some cannabis from Thailand. She got caught and she got a long jail sentence over it. An Irish girl as well, if memory serves correct. But she's in a desperate situation, you know. She sees an opportunity. She's pregnant. She's not thinking about maybe. Probably is convinced, you know, she won't get caught. She probably maybe somebody convince her. You know, she believes them. You won't get caught. She's probably told, oh no, it's very low risk because you're pregnant. They won't pay attention to you. You're pregnant. All right, so yeah, it's good money though. And she gets caught. Now instead of having, you know, a life-changing amount of money for her, she's having a life-changing experience for her and her child in a foreign prison. Disproportionate levels of violence by the US military against Central and South America, while the CIA were the first global enterprise. Yeah, man, that's a mad one, isn't it? Like, how many people will look at you sideways, you know, you have a tinfoil hat on, if you were to mention that to them now, that, yeah, the CIA were actually importing massive amounts of drugs to fund their covert wars, to fund, is it the rebels and the Contras or something like that? To come up with off the books money. They needed cash off the books. What did they do? They imported a load of cocaine, sold it within certain places in America. Crack epidemic happened. You know, it's crazy. There's a really good show called is it Snowfall? I think it's Snowfall it's called. If you haven't watched it, it's a TV show. It's fictional. I don't believe it's based on any true factual events, except the fact that, yeah, the CIA were involved. I don't think anybody in the actual series is a real person, but it's just based off of that fact that, yeah, this actually did kind of happen. And these, boom, somebody else out there says, great show, Bobby. What's happening, Bobby? But yeah, mad, the CIA, that's it. Like, but people won't believe you if you actually try to tell them and convince them, yeah, actually the CIA was bringing in that, and they were bringing in a massive amount of cocaine, and it benefits them. I was like, how active is that? Like, still, you know, who's in the pocket of these drug gangs? Like, talk about corruption within the guards, you know. Like I said, I'd love to get back. I have to get back doing more of these 420 news episodes and highlighting like what's going on here. Like, there was an article there recently about the family The guards here have been actively pursuing and investigating this drug gang here in Ireland, the family, for a couple of years, and you know, they know about this family, and how they're actively targeting and pursuing them is they're going from the bottom up. They want to get the small guy, the vulnerable, the individuals at the bottom, because they can't get the guys at the top. The guys at the top are smart. They distance themselves from stuff, because they can afford to. They're not vulnerable, desperate, you know, on the fucking dole, you know, single mother, whatever the thing might be. A fella just scraping by, getting about €600-700 a week. And meanwhile, you know, you've a couple of guys there, you could sell a bit of weed to, maybe a bit of coke to, whatever the case might be, and they could bring that extra 400, 500, 600 quid in. Do you know? It's crazy. But we could stop all that. Legalise them, they can regulate them. The Pentagon have failed financial audits for the last 2 decades and used the black budget to fund regime change efforts around the world. Yeah, wasn't that US aid kind of a part of that regime change with the NGOs that they were putting into different places and stuff like that? I think there was a lot of that going on over in Ukraine or something. I think like some of that US aid went over to there to fund some of these NGOs that might or might not have overthrew a government there back in 2014 or something. But look, let's not get into the politics. Kind of crept in there when we got into the CIA and stuff, didn't we? John Finnegan will be on here with a hammer swinging in a few minutes. Don't anybody tell Finnegan that we left this happen. Right, I'm going to pack up one more bowl of powdered milk. What's happening, everybody out there? We got a few new faces after hopping in. We're about to log off, but say howdy in the hot box anyway if you're just joining. Tinkle Tink says there is no THC in THC though. That's the loophole. No, it's there. Yeah, I suppose you're right in saying that, but THCA is just carboxylated. It has a carbon molecule on it, and to make THCA, you carboxylate it, you remove it, and it is THC. It's delta 9 THC. But yeah, you're right. It isn't THC, I suppose, when it's THCA. So yeah, but it's very easy to make THC the process of heat. THCA is a new compound. The Irish law prohibits all forms of cannabis plant without a license. Yeah, that's what they're doing still currently, aren't they? Without this fucking decision by the courts here in Ireland. I think it's a Supreme Court case that we're waiting on the decision from. To determine whether these CBD cannabis is legal here or not. It's crazy. How long is that going on? Like, is it 7 or 8 years or something like that? It's a crazy long time that this has been going on, and they still haven't reached a decision if cannabis under the 0.2% THC limit can be sold as a hemp product, high CBD hemp product, and not seen as an illegal narcotic under the Misuse of Drugs Act. It's mad. Like, how is it taking so long for that decision to be made? Really, like, and it's just can kicking. That's all they're fucking doing. Meanwhile, there's the shops there who have cases in the High Court, Supreme Court, whatever is going on there, who are still actively selling these products. No problem at all. The state can't come back at them or whatever. The story is there. But it's ridiculous. Come on, let's just go to court, sort this one out. On a European level, it's legal. There's no reason to criminalise people for that. It doesn't get you high. It's not psychoactive. Why create the problem? It's not THC. If THCA is on the cannabis plant, you need a license. THC isn't THCA. That's the bottom line. Yeah, I don't think it comes down to licensing. I think licensing is just about cannabis, the cannabis plant. If it's cannabis plant in any way, shape or form, you need a license. And I think at least here in Ireland anyway, it's the THC limit is 0.2%. And I don't think that includes THCA. I think that is just THC. Could be a combination. I've seen in certain regulations it's actually a combination of THC plus THCA, which is interesting as well. But I can see the argument there being made, like, yeah, he's right, the THC isn't THCA. It's two different compounds made, if one is made from the other, through a heating process. Yeah, exactly. That legal case concluded recently, Martin, where there was a reference in the Funky Skunk case. Yeah, that's right. The case there. You're on about the case with Charlene from the Funky Skunk. I believe she just wanted to get over and done with. I think she would have been under the banner of all the stuff that's going on there in the High and Supreme Court. I think she could have fallen under that, kicked the can, kept saying not guilty. Look, I'm going to wait for the outcome of this one. That's going to have to set a precedent for my one. But I'd imagine it's just a fucking pain in the behind having to deal with that. Imagine it's not a cheap thing to do either. I don't know what the costs involved in those these prolonged fucking cases are. But I can't imagine it's cheap. And the state, if they lose, once they lose, they aren't going to win this really. They're going to have massive legal costs, legal bills for this, because of the length of time it's going on, the amount of barristers, solicitors, all of that stuff. Crazy. And yeah, they gave Charlene a suspended sentence due to the fact she was selling flour while the other case was being heard. Now that's been heard. They determined it's all illegal. But they can't use that. I don't think she was in a high enough court. Wasn't that a circuit court case? So it's much like the one with myself when they dismissed it, because it is the same stuff they had, except theirs tested positive for cannabis, mine tested negative. It can't set a precedent for them, unfortunately. So I don't think, I'm not too sure how that affects the law here. Don't think it should anyway, because if it can't, if you win, then it shouldn't if you lose. At least that's my kind of reading it. I know I brought some Ishka out with me. Yes. But think if you're trying to argue that THCA isn't illegal here in Ireland, if you actually look at the wording of the law, it actually says THC and all derivatives of. Jeez, there was a word, there was a wording there. I'm not remembering it exactly, but when they mentioned THC, they didn't mention Delta 9 THC. I don't believe they did. And I think it was just all of them. I think it was THC, THCA. So Delta 9, THC, THCA. I would imagine that they would argue it would fall under that. It's the cultivating and extraction process that remains illegal. But if you can get the oil from, that's cool. Yeah, if you get the oil, I'd imagine if you get the THC oil, it's as soon as you convert it. So if you were to go and convert it, make some edibles or something out of it, it's all illegal once you convert it then again. But yeah, interesting. It's always trying to come up with ways around this thing, man. I just can't help but look. If we just grab the bull by the horns, head-on approach. If enough of us, man, I can't always help but think it. If enough of us just went, no, we're not taking this anymore. Stand up, marching, as I did, into the guard station, do a little bit of CBD again. If enough of us were to do it, man, we would waste so much of their time, the court's time. These cases, they take a bit of time. If you were to go in and they have to bring you in for questioning, they have to take your statement And when you're answering questions, just remember, if you're ever in this situation, if you are ever to go down that road, your protest doesn't stop once you go in with the plant or whatever. Your protest continues through your interview. You make sure you say what you have to say in your interview to that guard, because they're taking down word for word what you're saying, and they read that out in the court. So you can get your protest, do you know what you have to say, your point to the judge through that interview, through the Garda, through their little notebook that they take down. So I remember it was very frustrating the first few times being interviewed by guards and things, and you would say yeah to them, and they write that down, yeah, Y-E-A-H they would write. It wasn't even a Y-A, Y-E-A-H. And when they would read that out in court, it just sounded very like scummy, thuggish, you know, disrespectful. Do you know when it wasn't? Like, you're only saying, yeah. Like, you know, just in agreeing. But when it was read back, when it was said, it just sounded so, And I always just remember from that, they take down word for word what you're saying, they read it in court, and that's why I went on and done that, knew that. It was just great. The videos, I didn't realise the videos, they played them in the court. The judge got to watch that one, but I planted the plants on the bridge by the Shandon Bridge, and he listened to my speech that I gave within that. He allowed me in the box, as the journalist said to me that day. I've never seen a judge to allow a person to use the witness stand, whatever it's called in there, as a political soapbox. It was fair play to you. That was Judge John King. It was very unfortunate that he wasn't the judge that's seen over the sentencing of that. I should have pushed for a dismissal that day and put her off until the next day he was available for that sentencing, because the lady who done it was an absolute bitch. And has to be polite about it. Tetrahydral derivatives of cannabinol and 3-alkyl homologs of cannabidiol, or of its tetrahydral derivatives. So that's from the law. That's from the Irish law, isn't it? The Misuse of Drugs Act. I knew there was some certain funky wording around it, but yeah. Just like the water charges protests, it's very possible to achieve anything. And I believe it's the most effective tool in our toolbox, the one that hasn't been used at all, really. Like, we've got out there, we've protested peacefully, we've marched, we've, you know, sent letters, we've begged, pleaded, you know, we've done all of that. We really have. Oh man, a mother marched from Cork to Dublin for her child, you know, for Ava, you know, she rested in peace, you know, but think about that, like, and they still resisted that. We still don't have an effective means of access after that happens for patients, you know. We read that thing there a while ago, 22 through ministerial licenses and potentially 55 through the MCAP. That's sad, like, that's really sad. What hope do you think your protest, your letter really is going to have if a mother marching from Cork to Dublin on foot walked, like, what a soldier, like. And still, we don't have the change that she was fighting for. She got access to her child. They only really done that, man, just that, you know, just trying to dampen the fire in order to kind of settle her a little bit, because she was creating such a storm for him. The public, the support she was getting there was on, you know, it was unreal. It was crazy. Again, like, I can't help but think, what power are protests really going to have? Our signs, you know, going on, free to eat, you know, legalise, whatever. They're great days out, they're great for strengthening the community and all of that stuff, the campaign around it, but as a means of actually getting the change, pushing, you know, forcing the hand in a little bit of the government policymakers. Civil disobedience, peaceful protest with civil disobedience, keep it peaceful, polite, respectful. The guards, the guys enforcing the law, they are not our enemy. The policymakers, they're not really our enemy either. They're just misguided. They just don't realise. Maybe they're just stuck in, you know, that the fucking ball that's rolling, and they don't want to be the one who wants to change the course, you know. They go against, you know, the flow. But we really have to force our hand to it. All right, I've a bowl of powdered milk packed up there anyway. I'm going to share, I'm going to consume that. Anything else anybody wants to throw in there? Any other comments, opinions to be shared? Do share them there now, or forever hold your peace. Just don't forget, there's a link in the description there as well to join the 24/7 Hotbox over on Telegram. If you enjoy the conversations here in the Hotbox, you'll certainly enjoy them over there. It's got some great people over there. We got 2 groups. We got the first group, public, active enough, but we got a second group as well, which is a vouch-only group. If you're at all concerned about, anything, just be mindful that the first one is a public group. Go in there anonymously, that's fine. Meet any of the members, get to know anyone there, and you can get into the Hotbox 2.0. But do get over there, join the conversation if you're not already over there. Yeah, because I do enjoy the conversations that be happening here in the Hotbox. Like, that meeting is over probably an hour ago, and here we are still shooting the breeze, chatting away. Like, that's what went on in the 420 news as well. When I think of it, like, the news would be over in about an hour, and the show would go on for another 2 hours. Just the back and forth, the banter, going online, kind of going down different pathways, different wormholes. Yeah. Bobby says, how's that fish pie going? It's probably half eaten by now. I was supposed to actually go in and finish it. There was no real rush on it at all. I'm probably the most hungriest one out of them all. This powder milk is getting an appetite going. But yeah, we'll have a picture, an update there anyway into the Hotbox, not too long, that's for sure. Yeah, Pods says you need half the country out protesting, to be honest. Yeah, really, if you were to go down just the signs, the placards, the marching, you'd want about 500,000 people to be out there protesting on almost a weekly, monthly basis probably. I definitely believe the tool of civil disobedience, if done correctly, could be done with much, much less. Like 1,000 at most, 100 at least. If you had 100 people go out there on a weekly basis, going to different guard stations around the place, that's a big impact upon like a day in that court. Courts probably process about however many cases. You're going to have a big impact if you're bringing 100 people into that court, all to do like one line of cases. Definitely think that tool is massively underutilised by the campaign here. Tried my hardest to kind of get it up and running. Failed miserably, unfortunately, but gained a lot of, I suppose, respect and attention for the community and from the community. Yeah, see Cassidy there kind of still highlighting there. THC is a precursor of tetrahydro, so possession could be argued lawfully, but the sale and supply is definitely illegal. Again, I think it would come down to concentration, I would imagine. But yeah. So much fun blowing powdered milk around. Yeah, just to chime in on that as well with Casa and Tinkle Tink. I wonder, like, I don't think it's been argued. I don't think there's been a case against THCA. But I definitely think there's a for and an against. Nobody has challenged whether it's under THCA, under THC, the tetrahydric derivatives and stuff like that, under law. So whether it's illegal or legal, I suppose technically because it hasn't been challenged means that it's legal, but if you're to be challenged, then you're going to be dragged through the fucking courts like the guys with the CBD flower. because like CBD and THC under a certain amount is technically legal, but they argue under Irish law it's not. So this legal thing is a headache, really, like, isn't it, when you really get into it, because it's a lot of jargon and arguing that this might mean this, and, you know, freaking interpreting things, you know, this way and that way, and it's just a headache, like, you know, just, where's the humanity? No humanity in the justice system, anyway. I am homegrown, Jesus, hit that shit. Yeah, bro. Say but true, Martin. If it's a daily and constantly grows, then that's how a movement starts. Yeah, man, it's just crazy. At the moment, it's divide and conquer. We're divided. Most people aren't really getting caught with it. Those who are getting caught with it are going in. They're kind of saying yes or no, sir. 3 bags full, sir. I'm going to be a good boy, sir. A good girl, sir. I'll pay my fucking contribution there to your charity box, and get out of here with no conviction, and, you know, try not to get caught in the future, or I'm just not going to smoke it anymore because I'm terrified of getting caught in the legal consequences that's going to have, maybe jobs, fucking buying a house, you know, those kind of things. You're effectively being held hostage. They're putting a gun to your head around these things they shouldn't be. They don't have a right to, like, it's crazy. But yeah, sorry. THCA is not a derivative of cannabidiol. No, it's not. It's THC, isn't it? Yeah, THC. Talking about THCA, it's very simple. No, but THCA is a THC acid. I think that's the term for it. THC is THC acid. And it's a simple process to remove that. Like, there's definitely an argument going to be made against it. There's a reason why it's not on the Irish market anyway, that's for sure. If they could get away with having THCA here, they most likely would. But I haven't seen it. Enlighten me if it's out there in any of the Irish stores. But they would have definitely went for that before HHC. Yeah, it comes from CBG, exactly. Yeah, there's pathways, different kind of pathways these molecules can go on within the plant, and some of them are derived from others. You know, CBN comes from THC later on when it's left degrade and all of that stuff. So policymakers don't have a clue what's going on there, really. Like, a lot of us have an idea because we actually do the research. We're interested in the plant and the knowledge around it. Policymakers don't. You go into court, like, Tinkle, dead right, you can make a strong argument here, but it ain't going to be proven until you actually go through the court. And looking at how they treated CBD and stuff like that, I can't see THCA being treated any differently by the courts. And that's where you have to make your argument. We can go back and forth here all day, but really it's not until you get to the courts. And I would argue that they definitely would make an argument against you. And I agree totally with your argument as well. But would you win? I just don't know. The lads in the CBD, man, as I just said, 8 years and they still haven't won. Still haven't won. It's just, man. THC is essentially raw THC. It just hasn't been decarboxylated. Exactly. This is why you want to stick it into the oven for a little bit before you make your edibles. To activate the THC by removing the A. But still has some medicinal properties. Yeah, it does actually, yeah. Anti-inflammatory and all of that stuff. And non-psychoactive. Casa, it's more like no law this says it was illegal. That was a loophole. Comes from the USA. Yeah, the USA found a loophole. They got away with it because I think they were explicit about THC Delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol. Do you know, they were explicit about that. So THC fell outside of that. Whereas we here in Ireland, as Casa shared there earlier, we've got a lot more fancier wording around what is illegal. So that's where the potential arguments kind of come in the courts and all of that crack. Yeah, it doesn't say it's illegal. Yeah, nice one, Mackie. Yeah, that's very true. Like that's where you get into trouble, Casa. To not say to believe it's legal just because it hasn't been tested in courts. It's very good, as I say, until you get brought to the court. It sucks. But that's how they fucking do it. Do you know, imagine arguing at the side of the road with a cop like, it's THCA, boy. Do you know what I mean? You can't do me for this. This is not legal. Or this is not illegal. Doesn't say it under the law. Show me where under the law. And he's going to be like, taking the pen off you. It's illegal. See you in court. If you resist any further, not good. Now you're getting done for resisting as well, you know, and all of that kind of fun stuff. But that's, you know, unfortunately the situation we're stuck with. Shit, 15 more minutes to 4:20. Temptation is real. I think I had 2 glass bowls already of milk powder. The reason they don't test it in court is because it's legal. Test which now in court? Test flour? Nulum crimen sinleg. Bit of Latin there anyway. Definitely butchered how the pronunciation went. Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm missing a bit there from earlier. It's more, yeah. Until they changed the law, it's legal here. There was a court case for several years that concluded recently that says all cannabis is illegal, including CBD flour. If THCA is legal in Ireland, then where's the industry employing thousands of people? It doesn't exist in reality. Test the legality of THC oil. Yeah, that's the thing. You're testing it. That's to test the legality of it. But the issue with the THCA, like, can you get it really in a high enough concentration? And then they argue about it not being converted. You know, it's just, there's definitely a problem going to be made there. But yeah, I can definitely see, yeah. Well, you can get THC now. Yeah, you can find it online, definitely. But you can find other things online that aren't really legal. There's certain plants that are actually under the Misuse of Drugs Act controlled, whatever. And you can get them easy enough, you know. You can order in your mushroom kits and all of that crack, because technically the mycelium is not illegal. The mushrooms are. Yes, go on, Casa. That's the thing, like, you know. It's good back and forth banter there. It's good to see the arguments being made and all of that. Casa coming in saying, you know, happy to fund and support anyone making the legal arguments in court. I hope nobody ever has to make the legal argument in court. Do you know, think if you're getting in on a THC industry here, you're getting something up and running. You got my full support, man, 100%, and it seems like Casa is fully behind you there as well. Or that would be amazing, to be fair, because if you can get THC oil, converting that then to THC isn't that bad. Is it much more different to distillate? One can make an argument that it's not too much different to it, depending on like the purity of it, how it's sourced. Is it a plant extract? Is it a high THC plant extract? Yeah, it'd be an interesting one, alright. But fully behind you, man. Fully behind you. It's in Dublin already. Yeah, that's the new one to me. No, I hadn't seen or heard of it. I would have thought if THCA was available that it would have been much more popular than HHC. Is it just an oil consumable? Or is it an oil as an oil for a vape pen? Because I would imagine, like, if you're vaping THCA, it's the heating process of through the vaporizing that's going to create the THC. I would imagine, anyway, at least that's how it's kind of making sense in my mind. I'll never forget a day I asked herself to put the oven on because I had some cannabis trim laid out on a couple of shelves in there, and stupidly I said that the Fahrenheit was it? No, the Celsius instead of, yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right. I gave her the Celsius as Fahrenheit. So it was like 170 Fahrenheit, 190 Fahrenheit. I said 170 Celsius. And she turned it on for me. I was coming back. I was down in the shop at this stage. I was going down to get butter to bring it back and to make the oil. And I came back. She was upstairs. It was only been about like 10, 15 minutes. Opened the front door and I kind of noticed it's fucking really strong smell of weed. And next I opened the sitting room door to my left, and the kitchen door was through that sitting room, and the sitting room was absolutely filled with smoke. The kitchen, it was just entirely hotboxed. The cannabis inside in the oven was just absolutely obliterated. Everything on it had vaporized, came out in smoke. She came down from upstairs, kind of came in, was like, oh geez, is the place on fire or what? Helped open windows and doors and things like that. 10, 15 minutes later, she's absolutely baked. All of the goodies on the trim that I was gifted had vaporized, had come up into the smoke, into what was in the air, and she got absolutely baked. It was so funny. Like, she's not a consumer of cannabis at all, but yeah, that was hilarious. But again, yeah, that's conversion of THCA into THC, because all of that stuff on the plant mainly would have been THCA. So yeah. Nobody been brought to court for mushroom production. That's interesting. Yeah, to be fair, I've few and far between, like if any at all. No recollection of anybody being done for a large personal mushroom cultivation even. Cass asking, okay, how is the oil produced? Is questionable whether it's synthetic form. THC is not synthetically produced. Normally it's distillate, vape cart, Smartie. That's the ones above in Dublin, yeah? Okay, what's the quality control was gone into producing THC distillate? A big jar or 100 grams of THC oil, and I'd add terpenes back in. It's a winner. Boom, there you go. Like, if it works, then happy days. But I do agree with the concerns there, say, with Casa on the sourcing of these things. A lot of the vapes that were tested over in the US on that market, they were kind of substandard. Residual solvents left over from the extraction processes and things like that. There just wasn't a proper reputable industry. There was just a lot of kind of get in, make quick bucks and kind of get back out, not expecting the industry to last very long, because in reality, look, once cannabis is legal, these industries, they kind of go away. They're going to be absorbed into and taken over by just cannabis itself. But yeah, it's interesting to see that's above there in Dublin. If it works for you, that's a win. Picasso says he'll stick with the natural homegrown route and extracts that work for me. Some people are lucky, definitely. I'd agree with that, certainly. Can't tell people enough, why they should be growing their own, or to get together with a couple of friends and, share the risk. That's what we've done, myself and another couple of buddies. We share the risk. One of them grows, others contribute to the growing, the finance expenses around it. And we've all our names signed to it. We all take ownership of it if it's ever to go to court. We all take ownership of it. We share the responsibility for what's grown, with the number of plants and with what's grown, it's all personal. There's no major amount being produced, no high amount of profits, if any at all. The only money that's been made is the money that's saved from not having to buy it. But 100% homegrown, if possible, go for it. Yes, did a homegrown closet grow before, says Tinkle. Castle saying here, the funny thing about people is they mostly don't care they mostly don't care about how their food is made if they're craving something that'll justify consuming whatever that thing is. Keep it below 10k or evaluation just to be sure, and decentralize the plant count among the group. Well, yeah, that's the idea. The plants are all in the one place, unfortunately. But there's an agreement there. There's what would you say? Like, fucking, the only thing we didn't do is get a sign in front of a solicitor. But we all take ownership of it. If the person who is growing it gets brought in for questioning, we all know that person is going to be saying, yeah, this is mine, and such and such and such a person's grow. And that we'll be contacted. You know, our homes might be raided if needed, but we'll have nothing there. We won't be growing, and that's why the risk is shared. We all show up in court. We say, yeah, that's ours. We take responsibility for that plant, and that's hopefully how it plays out then. Shared responsibility through the courts. A plant each, personal grow, showing harm reduction approach, that we don't want to be funding, supporting the organised crime gangs, the underworld drug market, because that's often an argument made against people who consume illegal drugs. Oh, you're supporting the violence and all of that stuff that goes on along with illegal drugs. But if you decide to grow your own, you're reducing harm, controlling the quality, all of that stuff. Spliff says, can you post the link for the Telegram group? Yeah, not a bother at all. Just give me a sec, I'll open up Telegram here again. Find a link. Should be in the description, but if it's not, forgive me. Oh, it looks like we got one extra member over there already. Hey. Keeping an eye on the time there as well. We're 4 minutes away. We will pack it up definitely at that one though, because I'm getting really hungry now. And I know that the fish pies after being most likely finished and all inside the cooking. So I was really hoping to finish it myself. Right, open YouTube, find my video. I had an issue with the computer there as well a week or so ago. Wasn't starting. I found that when it last broke down on me and I was troubleshooting, I fucking caused a power surge, blew some of my RAM and the graphics card. So I'm running off the CPU now. Luckily it has what I need there to get the stream up and running and can power it. Gonna have to source a bit more RAM and a graphics card as well, so forgive me if the stream ever crashes while I'm doing stuff here in the background as well. Boom. There we go. Into the hotbox. The link goes. Remember that's the public hotbox group anyway. Safe, it's not been compromised by anybody really. There just doesn't seem to be any issues. Nobody's ever come back and say, hey, because I'm in this group that I've been watched. No. Like, come on, I've given them every reason to be coming after me and all of that stuff, and they've seemed to have left me alone. You know, touch wood, not fucking, what would you say, trying to provoke them. See, another one of those kind of instances. I know what I want to say, but trying to get the word. It's saying invalid link. I just took it directly from it there now. Did you use the one in the description or the one I just shared? That's the link. Yeah, we've a ball packed up here anyway, guys and girls. It's 4:20. It's going to be 4:20. Sorry, it's 4:19. So pack them up, blaze them if you got them. And that picture you shared over in the hot box the other day, Casa, was absolutely gorgeous looking. I don't know if you have it over in your X as well, your X account. Absolutely amazing. Locally grown tobacco leaf, with some locally grown cannabis, with some, I'm not too sure how you source that static hash. But look, the quality, tops, props to the roller. And boom, there we go. Happy 420, homies. I think we just got a 420 shout there as well from the hot box. Yeah, we did too. What's happening to the friendly grower? He just got a blaze and says, welcome to the group and happy 420 to all. We had a new member join a couple of minutes ago, so there's always a very friendly welcome to the new members. So do join, use the links. Give me a second, I'll try to fix it if it's not working. And it's funny, it's always a bit of banter when they join. Probably one of the first things that a person will be asked, one of the two first things you'll be asked, are you from Cork and do you drink Barry's tea? If it's a no to either of those, then you're off to a rocky start. Oh, a third possible question actually is, what's the capital of Ireland? And I'll give you a heads up, it's not Dublin, alright? But yeah, there's always a good bit of crack and banter over there. Woo. If you're rolling one up, if you're just wanting to go over a bit of crack, share a picture of your doob. Share your thoughts, opinions and stuff like that. It's always a good place to come. Trying to keep politics to a minimum over there. Just keep it friendly. It's just too much divisive stuff going on out there at the moment, so we just try to avoid some of that divisiveness. I think soccer is about as political as we allow it to get, and teabags. You get what I mean, you know. Talk politics as long as a bit of crack has been had and no emotions have been flared up. Anything else going on out there in the hot box? I think it says the one I just shared is not working for you. Bummer, what's the crack there? What's the best way around that? Because I'm taking a right from the thing, and somebody else just joined there a couple of minutes ago from Cork. Very important information about the person. But I'm not too sure where they joined from. Did you try the one in the description of the stream? If it's still there. It's not there. Oh, forgive me. Oh, no, it is there. It is there. That's there as well. There's one in the description of the stream. And fingers crossed that one works for you. I don't know why the one that I just sent you isn't working. Yeah. If it doesn't work in the description, when I end this, hit me up in the comments there on this or something like that, or however you might want to get me. What's my own personal one? I think I can share my @ on Telegram and you can message me through that directly. Is there? @MartinsWorld420. So if you search @MartinsWorld420, you'll find me. You know it's me because you'll see, you know, it's green screened out there now, but you'll see the Martins World logo on my account. Hit me a message. It's open to public messages if you're not friended up with me and all of that crack, and we'll sort it from there. That'd be the best way. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff, soul crushing stuff going on out there. It'll be good to just bring balance back to things, you know. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all approach to fucking life on Earth and whatever, society building and things. I think we need a balance, you know. And less division, you know. One love, brother, you know, that's it. That's Bob sang it well. One love. Let's get together. I wonder will I get fucking. Was my singing good enough to get copyrighted? But it was a great message, great message preached, you know. We'll get off of here before it, but like I definitely heard some conspiracies about like the CIA and killing Bob Marley, you know. Guy preached a strong message. He was bringing people together. He preached love, not hate. What would you think? Did you believe it? See, that's the fun kind of politics you can get into. Over on the hot box. Oh, howdy Alexis. We're coming in there now to finish up the fish pie, if there's any left for me. It's probably done. Yeah. So everybody conversing out there anyway. Link in the description for the hot box. Do join the discussion if you enjoy the discussion. And we'll see you back for the next joint committee on drug use meeting, and for hopefully an episode of the 420 news again as well. Please God, all going well. So until next time everybody, stay blazed out there, keep her lit, and much love to you all. Bye. Bye? No, wrong screen. That's the one. Have a good one, guys. Good luck.